everyone. Welcome to episode 29 of The Depths with Atramentum_X and me. This episode will focus on creators who inhabit various points along the inner bit of the gender spectrum, their experiences, and how their identity influences their content. We'll dive more deeply into the relationship between sex and gender in our episode featuring transgender creators. The aim of this video is to provide you with some understanding of the most common gender identity labels across the spectrum and illustrate the components of one's personal gender identity and expression. Most of us were raised with the notion that there are only two biological sexes, which are determined by chromosomes and sex organs, with two corresponding genders to match. Since our understanding has advanced, we now know that this is false. Whilst male and female are certainly the most common sexes, approximately 1.7% of people are born outside of these definitions. These people are intersex. Intersex traits may present as differences in genitals, gonads, hormones, and/or chromosomes, or some combination thereof. Individuals may go their entire lives without knowing that they are intersex, whilst others may be born with mixed or ambiguous genitalia or reproductive tissues. Note that intersex people are not hermaphrodites, as hermaphroditism refers to a person who is both fully male and fully female, which isn't biologically possible. At opposite ends of the gender identity spectrum are cis, where an individual feels an identity corresponding to their biological sex, and trans, where a person's gender identity does not match their biological sex. For the sake of brevity here, we will save this discussion for its own dedicated video. Gender identities. Along the inner parts of the spectrum are a multitude of labels and terms we can use to describe our gender identity. Whilst this is not an exhaustive list, the most common terms you are likely to hear are Genderqueer, an umbrella term for people who identify outside of the male-female gender binary. Nonbinary, people who reject the gender binary as a frame of reference to describe their identity. They may identify as both, none, all, or flow fluidly along the spectrum regardless of the type of body they were born with. Gender fluid, an individual whose experience of their gender can change or fluctuate with time, or depending on their situation. This may or may not include male and female genders. Agender, people who do not experience having a gender identity as part of their self-perception. Androgyne, a simultaneously male and female identifying individual. Gender flux, a person whose gender varies in intensity over time. They may feel strongly masculine or feminine at some times and less so at others. Demigender, individuals who experience a partial connection to a specific gender identity. Many consider themselves agender or non-binary, with a partial affinity with a male or a female identity. Omnigender or pangender, a person who identifies with all gender identities, sometimes simultaneously. Anatomy of an identity. Our identities and perception of ourselves are a complex and constantly changing system. To simplify and illustrate the main building blocks of our gender identity, I'd like to introduce you to Sam Killerman's The Genderbread Person. Their overall identity consists of four main ingredients: their gender identity, how they see themselves in their own mind; their gender expression, how they demonstrate their gender externally through behavior, dress, and other cultural signifiers of gender; biological sex, based on genitals, hormones, and chromosomes; and sexual orientation, who they are emotionally, spiritually, and physically attracted to. Whilst this model is simplistic, it is a useful tool for understanding how we think about who we are and signal to others how we wish to be seen and treated. I hope that this short video serves as a useful introduction to tonight's topic. As usual, all sources will be noted on the ending card. Thanks for watching. See you in the studio.
And welcome into this episode of the Depths Podcast. I'm your host, AtramentumX, Riot streamer and LootTuber. This is episode 29, Genderqueer and Non-Binary Expression in Vtubing. I'm joined by our lovely guests here tonight, and notably we have the absence of Lady Mystique, who unfortunately is not able to make it tonight, but I hope you did enjoy that short video from her about some of the definitions that will be guiding our conversation tonight. As always, we will go through our guests and have them do a brief introduction, tell us who they are, starting with a returning guest from last week, believe it or not, PodgeTheGoblin.
Hello. Yes, I'm happy to be back on the couch. Once again, for those who were here last week, and hello to everyone who's new this week. I am Podge. I'm a goblin-made VTuber, ASM artist, not safe for work content creator, and live 2D modeler and rigger. I am, I think Genderflux from that video quite accurately describes me, but I would say I fit under that non-binary umbrella because I firmly believe that gender is a social construct. And yeah, my pronouns are any. You can use whatever you like. Yeah, I think that's it.
Can I call you mine?
Yeah.
See, that's the only pronoun joke that's a good one. Next, welcome back, Podge. Next up, we have Cheribiri making their first appearance on the pod.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cherry. I'm the tiniest dragon on Twitch until proven otherwise. And I am a variety streamer. I usually stream games. I like to suffer in hard mode. That's like my favorite thing to do when I have to cry while I game. I'm also non-binary. I came out as non-binary when I was 17. But when I started my VTuber journey, I did not at first come out as non-binary to the community.
Absolutely. We'll definitely want to delve into that a bit later as well, because I'm curious, because I know I remember when you came out as non-binary, actually.
The OGs remember.
Yeah. And also making their first appearance on the pad is CuIfreann, aka Cu.
Hi, everybody. I am a streamer here on Twitch. I run table games, and I play currently playing some JRPG funness. I've been doing that for quite a bit of time, both in the meat suit version of myself as well as this new idealized version of myself. Let's see. I'm what you would call a gender nihilist, which is kind of the person it falls under that line of gender is a social construct. I don't believe we're there yet. It's where I would like us to be. There are people who use the term gender nihilist who literally just pretend like they stick their fingers in their ear and just pretend like it's not a problem anymore because they said it's not a problem anymore. But I know we have a lot to do.
I see.
I like that term, though.
Yeah.
It goes hard, absolutely.
I'm a gender pessimist.
Gender pessimist? No.
I'm just
Gender makes me sad.
Oh my god. Alright. Well, welcome to our amazing panel. They represent many different expressions and experiences, and we're looking forward to speaking to them tonight. So by the way, chat, if you have any questions at all for our panel, you can throw them into chat at any time. I will get to them as we get to them, but I'll acknowledge that I've seen the question. We also have some prepared questions as well. So starting with kind of a basic, establishing question, which is when you started, when you started your streaming / content creation journey, did you start out as the orientation you are now? Or alternatively, were you not open about your gender identity as you are now? Has becoming a VTuber affected the way you self-identify?
If nobody minds, I would start out on that one.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
By all means.
So, yeah, like I said, I've been out as non-binary since I was 17. For a lot of my teen years, I have identified as gender fluid. I had a phase where I thought that I was actually a transgender man, but mostly because I was experiencing experiencing a lot of gender dysphoria just from identifying as a female. So I came out as non-binary when I was 17. It kind of was the first time that a gender identity actually felt right for me, and I kind of settled with that. And then I became a VTuber about 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago. Almost 2.5 at this point, holy shit. And I was out as non-binary for years at that point, IRL. But with my streaming, I thought that people would not want to watch me if they knew that I was non-binary. Like, I was pretty scared to be open about it. Because I thought people would call me a snowflake and be like, oh, you know, the non-binary, that's not real. Of course you have a gender, and like, and be like, do you just want to be extra with how you identify? And I was like, I don't have the mental power to get through that. So for me, it was easier to just accept she, her pronouns. And then I always, on my profiles, I had like she/they. And it took me over a year before I actually came out to the community as non-binary, and I was like, if you see me different now, I'm sorry, but it's gotten really hard to like not feel depressed by being referred to as she, her. So I kind of had to make that change for my own mental health. And somebody who actually for me was really encouraging for that was Kyoharu, who's another non-binary VTuber who I really look up to. And I saw them just be so confident and casual and having a very female presenting looking VTuber, but being so openly non-binary. That was very, very inspiring for me. So yeah.
There's definitely this perception out there, especially for feminine presenting people, that you have to look or sound a certain way to be non-binary. And I think, like, I forget what the term is, but
androgyny.
Yeah. But essentially it was, and I'm totally butchering this, but it's like big booba lady, big boobed people can be like they, thems also, some shit like that. Yeah. But it was definitely the sort of like expectation, because people have a stereotype of what non-binary people look like, and when people don't immediately fall into those categories, there is like this completely like none of their business, but there is a pushback I've noticed. Yeah, but we can delve more into that later, of course.
As somebody coming from the masculine side of the spectrum, that exists definitely on the mask side of things as well, as a bearded individual, because genetics just work that way. There's a lot of assumptions, and usually when I do step forward, I'm like, no, it's actually non-binary, and they have kind of a qua. Then why do you have a beard? Kind of a response. I'm like,
I wish. I
okay.
I should grow a beard.
Yeah, because beards are quote-unquote masculine. Like, it's a traditional masculine trait, so if you have traditional masculine traits, then you can't be this thing. You kind of have to be like a formless, shapeless, genderless husk. And as we saw from like the genderbread thing, like the genderbread model, expression and identity are two different things.
And I have to add, the beard thing bothers me a little extra because there are women with beards. There are many women who grow facial hair, like biological females and people who identify as women. Beards are not inherently masculine, and oh my god, I love ladies with beards. Like, I think it's beautiful. And so many women are afraid of having facial hair because they will be deemed masculine.
Manly,
or manly or undesirable to men for having facial hair. And like, that's a huge thing too, like completely outside of whether or not they identify as non-binary.
Oh yeah, like happy trails, like upper lip hair, like any hair whatsoever. Like, if you have that, like, people say that's like, not feminine.
Oh yeah. The amount of Twitter people who go, if you have body hair, you're not a woman, is like, like it
Tweeted by
starts
some
with stuff like
19-year-old
that.
kick streamer, probably.
Nah, it's tweeted by like those nasty alpha male manosphere bros, and like there's so much of that. It makes me so tired.
There's plenty of TERFs that'll step up to the plate to lambast anybody that they see as not fitting into their gender norms as well. So like,
true.
It's very much on both sides of the street.
I like to point out Frida Kahlo, who was literally the woman of her time, and she owned that beard.
Yeah. And the unibrow.
Oh yeah.
Get it. Like, but yeah, like, in terms of identity since becoming a VTuber, I definitely think I've never really thought about it until reading the question earlier, but like, in real life, I definitely present less extremely feminine than Podge looks. Listen, I just like made outfits and stockings and stuff. But like in real life, like I don't shave my legs. I wear suits sometimes. Like I have the side of my head shaved. I can appear very feminine. I can appear very masculine. It depends how I'm feeling and what day it is and what the temperature is and, any number of things. But I pretty much exclusively with Podge I'm like, oh yeah, she, they is fine. But in real life, I use any. And it's more because, like, I don't know, I don't think he necessarily fits for Podge in how I see Podge as a character. But, like, I have people in my chat who will call me king and daddy, and I love that. Like, everyone knows I'm non-binary, but nobody really refers to Podge as a he, and that's, like, that's fine by me. I literally don't care. But in real life, I get very irritated when people default to she. Like, when I tell you you can use any pronouns, and then you just are like, well, then I'll just use she. It's like, okay, so you're just defaulting based on my appearance and the fact that I have boobs. So, yeah, it's yeah.
Some of that is conditioning. Some people, they mean well and they're doing their best, but there's times where it'll just the social conditioning that we were raised with just kicks in, and depending on what time period people were raised in, I think I might be the elder queer here.
I think you might be a bit older than me.
Elder queer.
Anybody exist in the 80s at the table?
Briefly.
For about 3 months of the 80s.
Okay.
Oh,
all right.
Boy.
I had a little bit more time in the 80s.
The resident baby.
So before the
I'm
USSR
a 90s baby.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I got to. I didn't know what I was watching, but the wall fell. But
just fell over.
Coming from that time period, there was a lot of just very. It was assumptive. It wasn't oppressive in its like, okay, it's time for us to go to indoctrination class, but it was still very much it just subsumed itself into all of society. Everything by that point had become gendered. You had your boys' toys and your girls' toys.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that.
It
feels like it really intensified in the 90s, like Lisa Frank and unicorns and pink things for the girls and Barbies and such. I know Barbies is much older than that, but
it's fact,
so like
the colors were flipped.
Yeah.
Originally, pink was for boys because it was supposed to be the lightest shade of blood.
Yes.
The blood that Christ shed, because of course is Christian. And blue was for girls because blue was the color of the Virgin Mary.
Yes.
And it was misprinted in a Macy's catalog one year, and then everybody just jumped on board. And it was like sometime in like the 40s, I think, is when that officially changed.
Society
And-
is so fucking weird.
Yeah.
But
That is weird.
I do want to go back to like they mean well. Some people I think do mean well, but I think
Mhm.
some people use the fact that I use any pronouns as an excuse to default. Like,
Mhm.
and I can say that for certain because that's what my parents do.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
told them I was non-binary and that I don't care about pronouns. And like, well, then we're still gonna call you she, her, and our daughter. And I was like, I mean, sure, whatever. I don't care. But like, it's an excuse so that they don't have to make the effort and don't have to sit with the discomfort of understanding anything beyond the gender that they thought I was.
Oh, of course.
So,
What? Sorry.
so yeah, like so it does kind of suck and it does kind of like hit when the majority of people will default to she. And for a while I did say, okay, I'm just gonna go by they, them, but like that didn't feel right either. So
Well, what I like to do when people go by are okay with multiple different pronouns like she, they, I like to just mix it up.
yeah.
Because-
Yeah.
Like, my favorite thing is mixing it up in the same sentence.
Mhm.
It's
As a
like,
writer,
it's like,
that can get weird.
yeah, I know, but like, just in like, casual settings, obviously. But like, just because to me, that's like the smallest bit of validation that I can easily give somebody is just by switching up what pronouns I use for them if they don't just go by one. And it's like such an easy thing to do.
Yeah. I
That
asked
takes
her
zero
and they
brain
said
power.
X.
Yeah.
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 And a lot of
Ma-
people do that with me and I totally love that. Like
Yeah. I've actually reconditioned my mother to stop calling me daughter and like call me child instead when she calls out in frustration. Like when I would do something she didn't like, she would go daughter and I would be like, I'm not your daughter, and she'd go like child. So I'm glad that worked.
That's conditioning. It's good. It's called conditioning. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, in German, neutral pronouns don't exist.
mhm.
That's a language issue.
Yeah.
I'm lucky, like, I speak almost no German except with my mother. But with anybody who refers to me in the German language, they have to use she, her. Although I do have friends who just refer to me by name, and it makes for some really interesting sentences. Because they are respectful, and I appreciate that. But yeah, that makes it a little difficult in German. We don't have a they, them
Language-
equivalent.
Language is one of those fun things, though, because it's always evolving, and there's
Right.
things that today's German didn't have, 100 years ago. That word didn't exist. So the potential that a genderless pronoun could make its way into the German language, not saying tomorrow, but eventually, is possible. Languages are a living, breathing thing, just like the people that use them.
It would be
Is
so interesting.
German-
I would love to see that.
Yeah, like German is a language like German, Norwegian, also like the Romance languages all heavily rely on gendered
Yeah,
Right.
we have so
Like-
many
like
pronouns.
Yeah.
objects have gender.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have she, he, and it, but there's no they, them. Like,
Yeah.
so your option would be to be called an it, which is like really kind of rude.
Yeah.
I mean, some people do like that, which I can also understand. But like, if that's not the choice you made for your gender identity, then that's obviously not what's gonna fit you.
It squicks me personally because to me that's an objectification, and
So-
objectifying a person is almost stripping away their humanity.
Uh,
Like if
As
somebody,
long as they don't identify as such.
yeah,
yes,
I understand that, but like, yeah, some people do identify as that because that's like part of the idea that they take away a bit of that humanity and a bit of that,
I've definitely seen like it, they, or it, any.
Yeah,
think
Definitely
that's
not
super
very
valid, yeah.
commonly. Yeah. Not commonly, yes, but I can. If you don't identify as it, I think which is what the point is, it can feel dehumanizing.
Oh yeah.
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 It even
If you
makes
use
me
it
feel uncomfortable
derogatory.
to use it personally because
Exactly.
I respect people. I do my best to respect everybody, and even when they're like, "Hey, my pronouns are it," and I just sit there and because in my brain the objectification starts working again, and I was like, but I don't want to strip that away from you because you're a beautiful human just like every other beautiful human on this planet. So it's
And that too
it's
is
a challenge
conditioning.
for me.
Yeah.
But at that
That's a
point,
good
it's
way of
their
explaining
it's their choice.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, like I understand that too, and I do have a friend who uses it, but it is like I guess where my parents need to be reconditioned to understand they them. I think our generation struggles with it and like
Yes.
referring to a person as it because like I was teased as a child a lot. I was bullied a lot. And I was referred to as an it for being like hairy and
I remember that
weird.
also. Yeah.
So like to me hearing it is like I struggle to understand like and the thing is you don't have to understand, you just have to listen, but it is hard to like jump that hurdle of like calling another human being it in a way that is not derogatory.
In the late 90s, there was when the understanding of intersex was just starting to be like understood. There was a book called A Child Called It that talked about a child who was born with both characteristics. I remember it being assigned reading and people teasing other students and calling them it, and it was really nasty, unfortunately. Yeah. And like that is what stuck in my head for better.
kids fucking suck. Sorry,
Yeah, kids do suck. Kids are the worst.
kids are the worst. You
Yeah.
can't like. But
Yeah,
also,
refuse to
then the
reproduce.
issue with that stuff is like, you give kids something like that to read, and instead of like educating them on why it's like not okay to use that in a derogatory way, you just let them run with it, and that's where adults fail.
Yeah, because
kids don't know. Kids are just
to understand like what
kids are not done with their silly little brains. They have to figure it out still. So like, adults need to take responsibility and make sure they get it.
I agree.
So yeah.
And it's you know a lot of adults and parents who are the ones that and it's weird because like we're in that age bracket now where we're like the adults and parents, but it's like the generation above us is the generation that didn't know this stuff and refused to teach it. So now we are in this generation of like we know this stuff, so like to not teach your kids this like is like it is malicious. Like it's to not allow your children to have the education to understand human beings is bigoted.
I agree.
I wouldn't say malicious. I would definitely say negligent.
Negligent
Is a better word.
100%.
Yes.
People can be malicious about it,
Yeah.
absolutely, but just denying people's right to be like anything but male or female, presenting or
Yeah.
anything.
Especially with like a lot of adults who actually think it would be bad if their kids started identifying as non-binary, for example, and they purposefully withhold that kind of information or like teach it in a way where kids would learn to make fun of it and stuff like that. That is malicious in my opinion.
Yeah, that's
I
it's
have
why
family
here
like
in America,
that.
like that's why they try to restrict sex education, because they think if kids hear about it, then they might start identifying as such, or worse,
gonna
have
turn
empathy for
gay.
people who identify as such.
Turning the kids gay.
They're gonna
yeah.
become trans.
I
You're
came.
gonna
No.
make the kids trans.
You gotta make the kids trans.
I had a very specific situation for me that probably differs greatly from the experiences here, both on this panel and also probably in chat. My concept of pronouns didn't come from discovering gender like nonconformity. It came from immersing myself into queer culture itself. So in the late 90s, I got a job on Fire Island. I was a waiter.
Oh,
And there's a specific port town called Cherry Grove. Kind of infamous if you're familiar with the Fire Island culture.
I'm a Canadian and Cherry's a German, so
I'm German. I don't know what that is.
Well, I'm
Like,
from
what
New
is
York,
this?
so
I
I
had-
kind of
I had
captured
cherry
that.
and it activated my neurons, but that's it.
The entire
So-
southern shore of Long Island is queer as hell. Put it.
Yeah,
Aw.
Aside
that's
from
where
like
I
one little
grew up.
spot in the middle, like
That's
Oh, that's
actually
what.
where
Is
I
that
grew
where the
up.
gays live? Okay.
well, it's where the
Neighborhood.
recreation, where they went to recreate.
Yeah, Fire Island is a gay vacation spot, and there's several towns along the barrier island that's south of Long Island that is just tourist destination for queer fun.
Ooh, Podge, we should go.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's
God,
go.
I would show you guys a time. We could go
Yes,
to the Ice
please.
Palace. We could go to. Oh no, there's a bunch of places I wouldn't.
Listen,
go
I'm
to.
coming to see
But-
you at Halloween times.
Oh,
Hey, yeah.
fun.
Oh my God. Can
But-
I come along? Woo.
So my experience was being surrounded by people that just threw all concepts of gender out the window. It was all about being gender fucked. It was just whatever. Don't care. I became comfortable with pronouns because everybody called everybody else any pronoun that popped into their head at the time. I would occasionally be waiting tables, and one of my coworkers would just be like, "Oh, look at her," and as I would walk past, and then later, hey, are they coming down? Or I saw him before, so it was like I had no pronoun on Fire Island. I was just referred to by whatever was convenient in the moment that popped into somebody's head, and that kind of broke my understanding of what gender identity is and what gender identity that connection pronouns have to gender. Because my boss Ed was also known as Mama and switched back and forth on the fly. We had drag shows in the restaurant. She would come down in full 1 foot tall wig with, glittering, like Liza looking outfits. And then I'd see Ed in the morning, just walking in a polo shirt, not knowing that the day was going to be long. And that was just my life for like a couple of summers. I actually, my girlfriend at the time, her mother owned a house in the Grove. So I would just spend 4 or 5 days straight. I would work my shift. I'd go party and do karaoke at the Ice Palace. Nobody asked me questions because I worked at Mama's place, and nobody carded me or anything like that. I was just walking in, wide-eyed 17-year-old that wanted to sing with everybody. That was what I wanted to do. So the internet knowledge wasn't even a thing yet, and I was assaulted by this concept of gender is bullshit. Let's just have fun and love each other, everybody.
So basically a community that like this sort of organically grew out of, instead of us trying to put it back into our normal lives. It is a community that already had this like norm built into it, is what I'm seeing here.
And it's
Some
because
organic gender fuckery.
yeah,
Exactly. Organic gender fuckery. Get it at Whole Foods now.
we used to, and pardon the slur, but I can use it as one of them myself. We had drag, we had fag, we had trans, and it's great. Like that was the vibe of the town. That was our thing, and that was where I found kind of my. All right, screw it, we're done with that. And I guess I guess that's where I first kind of went with the concept of non-binary, but it's always been there, but solidification never became a thing because it was just whatever, I'm me, deal with it.
That's such
That's
like
very
a unique
interesting.
experience
Yeah.
compared to how a lot of us like figured ourselves out.
I honestly don't quite remember how I figured myself out, other than not feeling happy with my gender identity at all, and like just testing what I was more happy with until I learned what non-binary is, and it was kind of mind-blowing. But
Yeah.
yeah. it's like suddenly you have something where you're like, oh my gosh, this is so me. I am the frog. And then and then it's like and then what is really nice for me is very similarly to what Ku actually experienced. I live in one of the queerest cities in Germany. I'm not gonna name it obviously, but I exclusively go to gay bars with my friend group who are all exclusively very gay, and it's just the best. It's all just a bunch of queer people in a queer space, and one of my favorite bars, the owner is actually very similar to the person Ku mentioned. Ed goes by he goes by Tina, and sometimes is called she or he or whatever, and it doesn't matter, and nobody cares, and it's so beautiful and so relaxing. And honestly, I would recommend just every queer person just hit up a gay bar at some point, because you will not regret it. It's just the experience.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
I love these stories because my like gender journey is so like rooted in, well, the girls hate me, so I guess I'm hanging out with the boys now. And it's like, well, I don't fit in with the girls, so what am I?
I absolutely will 100% admit that there was also some bad times, but it was that community where I felt safe. In high school, like, I got a concussion once because a group of jocks decided to drive up the street and hurl a chunk of ice at my back, and they ended up hitting me in the back of the head. I woke up on the side of the road, like, what the fuck happened?
Oh my God.
I got home at like 7 at night. No one had stopped to check on me. I was just lying on the side of the road covered in snow at the time, and I woke up of my own accord. I got home and my parents were freaking out. Where were you? And I was walking home, and then I woke up later.
Literally dying at the side of the road.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's so bad for you.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't fun. Thankfully, there was a ditch that was away from the traffic, so it's not like I fell into the. Actually, it might have been better if I fell into the road, because then somebody would have seen.
Then
me.
someone hopefully stopped.
It's like people who appear masculine and don't quite fit like the cookie cutter idea of masculinity often experience so much physical violence from their peers, whereas like on the other end, people who are assigned female at birth, we experience a lot of like emotional manipulation and stuff, and like and all those traumas, they stay with you and they make you question yourself so much. And like, am I glad these things happened to me because they got me where I am, and like to the point where I'm like, I don't give a fuck if nobody likes me, I'll like myself. Like, yeah, kind of, but I wish they didn't have to happen to feel like that.
It's a matter of like it happened. We don't have to be glad it happened. We are who we are though because of that. Well, so long as we can process it and come to terms with it, that's what makes it there. That's what makes it valid. It's validity that we.
But wouldn't it be so nice if we could all end up at this point without all the trauma?
I know.
Well, that's our responsibility as like now adults, and
like we're the grown-ups now.
Now we can make that transition, that journey easier for people after us.
And I actually, like, on that note, like, so I do Bavarian folk dancing, and I teach kids.
What?
And
wait, you do a folk dancing as well?
Yes.
I was an Irish step dancer.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
I competed all over the world for it. It was
holy crap.
It's so rare to find another person who does a form of folk dance.
I also have prizes from being a folk dancer.
Oh, we can compare trophies.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The kid I dance with, he is like 6'1" and he's 14.
My gosh.
But he grew up on a farm, and his parents are very traditional, and he's like a farm boy. And I had to explain to him last week what pansexual means and what non-binary means, because he dropped the F-bomb. And I was like, okay, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
And I said, you know that I was married to a woman, right? And he's like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, and you know that I'm not, like, I'm non-binary, and he's like, well, okay, explain that to me. And I explained it to him, and he listened, but, like, his parents have not taken the responsibility to teach him these things. And kids at school, you know, when we were young, we used to throw gay around as a slur all the time.
Oh yeah.
And like, so while there are kids that get it, there are some kids that really don't. And I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, I'm glad that this kid's my dance partner so I can teach him that, like, I'm not some big scary thing to be afraid of. I'm just different from what your parents have told you exist. Like,
So
and
when are you buying him his litter box to put in his room?
Gosh.
yeah.
Or that's what they'd have us believe.
But it's like, you know, like, he's a good kid in most respects, but it's just no one has taken the responsibility for that behavior, and no one's told him that that's not okay.
Yeah.
Because he's 14, I can't be like, you're a monster.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
You're a child.
Oh yeah, God no, no.
That's what I meant earlier too. Is like kids that just
There's
get their hands on certain terms and then they are left to run with it.
Yeah.
And no, like, very few adults take the responsibility to explain to them why that's not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was like this incident a couple weeks ago on Twitter with this group of people
Degenerates.
who made like an entire, like, they had some kind of tea podcast or whatever, and there was one of them having like an entire rant about non-binary people being like, that's just gender blob, it's not real, you're just confused. And I'm like sitting there absolutely dumbfounded how people can, grown-up people can sit down and talk about stuff like that where they have zero clue and zero right to put those words into their mouth.
And they'll straight up say, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Like, well, then educate yourself. It's not our, pardon my French, it's not our fucking responsibility to make sure you can act like a decent human being.
So that's an actual
Exactly.
there's an actual phenomena, and it's very German, and of course a couple of Germans figured this out and coined it. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah.
And what it is basically the less you know about something, the more convinced you are you're right about it.
That is true.
So true.
Like, how many times have you been working on something and then somebody walks over and they know next to nothing about what you're doing? And then all of a sudden they're giving you tips and they're telling you what you should be doing and how you should be doing it. Or that's stupid, that's wrong. And it's like, well, have you spent any time, like, are you drawing? Are you also an artist that draws? Then why are you telling me my perspective is off if you have not? Because guess what? I'm not there yet. And you haven't even started.
Yeah, like, you are on the journey. And
Yeah.
and again, you don't need to understand something to respect that.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
and that was a big hurdle with my ex-wife's mother when she was transitioning. She just kept saying, I don't understand it, I don't understand it. And we both sat there and said, you do not need to understand being trans to respect your daughter. And to respect me as a non-binary person who, you know, loved your daughter.
What is usually what happens is that what they don't understand, they assume is harmful. And that's something that has, that's a human monkey brain kind of a thing that happens, that I don't understand it. Therefore, there's a great potential that it is harmful and I must get it out. It's the same reason why we have, like, the uncanny valley. There's a very prevalent theory right now that the uncanny valley was formed because during early, like, nascent Homo sapien development, there were other hominids on Earth side by side, and recognizing what wasn't quote-unquote human was part of what helped survival and also led to the eradication of those other hominids. Yeah. So it's just this, there's so much in baked nature that we are fighting against, And that nature is set against itself in a lot of ways, because with people who identify it not in the way that society has, prescribed them, there is something internal that is natural that is saying, but you feel this way. But then there's something on the other side that's like saying the exact opposite. So there's a clash, and there's a lot of internal struggle because of it.
But, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Cherry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, well, that is true. We are also able to just sit down and educate ourselves. Like, especially in the age of the internet, we literally have all this knowledge on our fingertips. We can literally go and ask other people if we don't want to Google. It's so easy, and yet people prefer to choose to be rude and uneducated
And
over being
like...
over being just, that putting in a little bit of effort. It's like putting out an opinion that nobody asked of you on top of never having educated yourself on a topic is just vile, in my opinion. Because you have the tools.
I find myself being less angry at those people and more just exhausted. Because
Yeah.
it's like, here we go again.
And it's like, I also find it's kind of flabbergasting, like how much energy people put into hating others who are different from them, as opposed to typing a couple keywords into an internet browser. Like, Google is free.
It's that knee-jerk reaction of I don't understand it. They're not hating so much as hating as a reaction to their fear.
But it's like the energy that they put into it, right? Like,
well.
they like double down, they stand their ground on it. Like like it takes, with my dad, it has taken work to be like, no, you need to just sit and listen for a second, because like he's one of those people who, if he thinks he knows something, he'll double down on it. And stubbornness, it runs in my family.
Yeah,
I'm like that
my
too,
dad's the same.
But like,
this is one of those situations where I have a similar divergent experience. So my dad, he actually, when I was going through high school, I think he understood something was different about me. I always had the long hair that came down to like just above my ass crack, and most people were just like, "Oh, metalhead. That explains it." Done. Because of course I also was very much, and still very much am, into metal. So that was the assumption. But eventually, when I was talking to my dad about things, it came up, and he tearfully confessed that he used to participate in gay bashing. And there was almost, it was rough for me in the moment, but also the way he presented the information to me was with such regret and remorse. And it wasn't like I was going to be able to forgive him for his transgressions in his past. But I could also see that he understood now. He was listening. He was being more open about things. And I mean, this was back early 70s when he was hanging out at the bar and, a couple of queers came in, and then, he would just go along with the crowd that would kick them out of the bar. And coming into the modern time.
Probably Mega
My
Podge.
cat jumped on me. My cat jumped on me, sorry.
But it took and I couldn't, I was mad at him for a moment, because there's that immediate, like, are you fucking kidding me kind of response that immediately jumped into the back of my head. But I also had to step back and analyze the situation of like, he's not telling me this because he's bragging. He's not telling me this because he thinks I'm part of that kind of a culture. He's telling me this because he knows I'm not that, and I think he sees me and the people he participated in doing terrible things to. And that gave me a window into, like, education. Sometimes it's not a matter of a willful just decision to not learn. Sometimes it's breaking down the barriers of the previous indoctrination that were built.
That's true.
Right.
And that's
so
hard.
much work is needed to get through that.
That is
So
true.
much.
I do want to point out a comment here in chat from Loafman. So my bio-grandfather is one of those religious folks that doesn't hate LGBTQ plus people, but the quotation marks, they don't need to make it their whole personality. Just keep it behind closed doors.
Or that one
person.
too. Yeah.
Just don't go outside.
You keep your religion behind closed doors, okay? Don't
Honestly.
make it your whole personality, you know?
Like Jesus told us to. Yeah.
It's like also that it's like that is one thing that gets me really livid. Like there's people. Okay, so my previous roommate had a little nephew, and I treated him like my nephew as well. It was like really close to a kid. I taught him how to play Minecraft, and not him since he was like 3 years old. And when he was like 6 or 7, his uncle came to him and asked him if he had a girlfriend yet. And I'm like, like adults will do shit like that, but then they go, oh no, kids cannot learn about gay people because it's not appropriate. Like gay people cannot kiss on the street because what if the kids see it? But like straight couples can, or like, you know, traditional male woman couples can kiss on the street. Nobody bats an eye. Nobody cries out about the children. Like, if they are old enough to watch a man and a woman kiss, they are old enough to watch a man and a man kiss, or a woman and a woman. It's like the hypocrisy in how children are raised.
Oh yeah,
you can have
with
two
that kind of stuff
dancing together at a wedding, like, you know, as part of the wedding party. Like, like, what is that norm? Like,
it's just it's blame shifting, right? Like,
yes, the calls coming from inside the house. Like, They make big, huge, condemnations and accusations about the trans or just LGBTQ in general. They make these big, huge declarations and accusations when, if you really look at the way they operate, that's what they're doing. Child's beauty pageants are the things that really skeeve me the hell out.
Oh god, yeah, those give me the heebie-jeebies.
That's
it's like you're putting like little kids in like swimsuits and like
but they're the first ones to make the accusation that, you know, it's the queers are corrupting the youth.
Yeah,
they're grooming all this stuff.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, there's still so many people who think that being gay is equivalent to being a child liking person. And it's like. It's like there's so many narratives that still need to.
They never come from a good place. It's always a place of like maliciousness to like say these certain things and sort of concern trolling over like protecting the kids. Where it's very like in the example given above about the gender neutral bathrooms. Like, you have a gender neutral bathroom in your house. Yeah, everyone does.
Exactly.
I would hope.
Oh my gosh.
Unless the men in your house are really dirty, I don't know. But like, but like, people will take that as like an imposition on like them, and like so we talked earlier about like people needing to educate themselves and make the step to do that. There's a flip side of that, where a lot of the maliciousness comes from, where it's people insisting that your existence like is forcing it on them, right? And I think that's kind of the other part of it, and why that podcast touched so many nerves, because that came from not an ignorant place, I thought, when I saw that clip. That came from like just the anti-woke, like, oh, these people, they're in our games now, they're like the new Valorant operators, non-binary, and that's weird and gross and shit like that. Like, that's what I saw, and that's, I think, the biggest hurdle I'm seeing online these days. I think, too, in regards to that podcast specifically, it was a bit of an echo chamber effect as well. Where, you know, if you're in a circle with people who think the same way as you, your thoughts and your opinions will only be amplified because there's no one to challenge those opinions. So you feel perfectly comfortable going on a podcast with your two besties and spilling, quote, tea, unquote. And because you know they'll agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit too, like, I can't watch what they were doing and be like, this wasn't a little bit for clout. Oh, it absolutely was. And using other people's identity for clout is a whole other level of nasty. That is another tier on the shit cake.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to take some questions from chat. We had a couple questions earlier. So this question was from Tefandra. Question for y'all. Do you think VTubing with a more obvious difference in vocal versus model presentation leads to more people accepting someone as non-binary, or are they just going to get assumed as trans? So I think this question is asking about people who have sort of traditionally femme or traditionally associated masked voices and a model that might be femme or masculine presenting, that mismatch. And I think the part of the question was, do you feel that there's a disconnect there when people see your model, your voice, and then hear the word non-binary?
I think there's two answers to this question. I think within the VTuber community itself, vocal presentation and model presentation are kind of just taken at like, okay, that's who they are, that's what they do, because all of us are, you know, going into this with the understanding that we've created an ideal self. But in terms of like regular viewers who don't really see it from that side, perhaps, because I've certainly seen instances where people are like, oh, but you have such like a cute teehee, like cute voice, like how could you ever be masculine, like or you know, friends who are trans who do have deeper voices and they've had experiences where people have come into their chat and, you know, said shitty things to them because of their voice. So I think it depends on how immersed in VTuber culture you are. And it depends on the person.
I think a really great thing about the VTuber community is that it's such a wonderful place for transgender people. Like, even if you don't, like, even if you're, for example, a trans woman, but you don't look extremely female presenting IRL, you can live that out through VTubing, and a lot of people experience a lot of validation through that, which I think is awesome, because like the VTuber space is full of transgender people, and I love that. I think that the part with being non-binary comes back to the idea that non-binary people need to look a certain way. Like, oh, if you're non-binary, you gotta be androgynous, which obviously isn't true. But it's really hard to go around that because you can't just rewrite your brain to not assume somebody's gender identity, at least based on how they look, like how they present themselves. It's like impossible. You cannot read minds. You can't just conjure knowledge into your brain. So,
and especially because like our models are, you know, the face of our brand, like right. So what our models look like is gonna say it's literally like people read the book by its cover. And that's part of what we do. Like, brand identity is super important in VTubing. But so I guess like it can be difficult to break those assumptions because, you know, my model was made with certain things in mind to give people certain assumptions. Right? Like, I look this way because I chose to. I chose every aspect about how this model looks. I made it myself. Like, I can't even make the excuse of, well, the artist did this because I did it. So, like, it's tough because I understand that I am incredibly like feminine presenting as a VTuber model. But that doesn't really, at the end of the day, what I look like doesn't mean shit. Like, what I look like has nothing to do with who I am.
Yeah, we really want, if you take one thing away from this chat, gender identity and gender expression are two different things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Honestly, I think making assumptions is okay. It's human, and we kind of need to because that's how our brains work,
Right.
and that's how we function. As a social animal, we gotta make assumptions. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to operate.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we're meeting
the difference
hundreds of
is-
people like on
Yeah.
a monthly basis as VTubers. Hey, sorry, Cherry, continue.
Oh, good. The difference is when you get corrected. For example, me using she, her, you get corrected, being like, oh no, it's actually they, them. The difference is whether you then react with, oh, my bad, they, them, or, oh, yeah, but you look like a girl, you have booba. It's like, that's the difference. Like, I posted an IRL pic on Twitter the other day, and like, some dude was like, oh, you're such a pretty lady, and I was like, I'm not a lady, but thanks, and they are like, but you have booba, that means you're a lady. And I'm like,
Well,
Are you
okay.
5?
Yeah, that was my reaction. You're obviously underage, and I blocked them because like that just comes from disrespect.
Right.
Like if you get corrected, your answer should be, "Oh, my bad," not doubling down.
and it doesn't have to be any more than, oh, my bad, and then correcting yourself. Like, you don't have to make a huge apology. You don't have to make a big scene. That just makes it weird. Like,
Yeah.
the correct response to being corrected is, oh, my bad, and correcting yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't make it about you.
Exactly.
There is
Yeah.
also something to be how the correction is delivered.
Yes.
Being even
Yes.
with doing your best to be even, assertive with your correction. Try not to get aggressive, and they might be defensive. Go too passive, and they ignore you. So you kind of have there's a fine tightrope that we all have to tread, and not everybody has the same tightrope.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, you can't control how people react. Just
Exactly.
just set your norms that people respect you.
very much a
But
do
I-
your best.
I really
Yes.
admire, like, Cherry mentioned Kiyoharu and also Cherry for how they both
Ew, woo.
will just straight up be like, oh, it's actually they, them.
Mm.
And, like, Cherry, you have a thing in your chat as well, right?
Yeah, I have a time
That's just like, please
message.
respect- Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That just says Cherry's non-binary. They go by they, them. Please respect their pronouns.
Yeah. And, like, you're very, like, concise and succinct with it. You're just like, oh, it's by the way, not a girl. By the way, it's they, them. And then you move on. Like,
Yeah, that
It's
honestly
become-
comes from almost 10 years of being out as non-binary. So
Mm.
it's like that is a learned thing for sure. But yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Podge.
Setting those norms in your community tends to be self-reinforcing. Like, your chat will do it for you as well. Like, your mods will do it for you. Like, people will come in and, like, realize that after a due course of time. Like, don't be afraid to correct people. Don't just put up with it, because the community and the the norms you set for yourself in your community, like,
Yeah.
like, if people respect you, it will happen.
My community is
the block
honestly,
button is free.
yeah, my community is honestly so great about correcting new people who come in, and new people who come in. I don't think I've maybe had 2 instances where people got defensive and were like, oh, like starting to explain themselves. It's because I'm so used to male and like man, woman, whatever. But my community is so great about it, and I'm really, really thankful for it because they got my back, and it means a lot. And if they didn't, I don't know what I would do, honestly.
I'm
So,
gonna
yeah.
combine 2 questions here, one from Anon Adderland and one from Title Mizu, about the specific audio and visual signifiers of gender and voice-changing apps. So the question specifically asks, are there any audio or visual signifiers of gender at all? And the question from Title Mizu is, how do you guys feel about voice-changing apps? I use voice mod. I like my voice sometimes. I feel it sounds a lot different on video than does IRL, and I sound a lot gayer than usual. So I will leave it up to you all. I have my opinion on the question, but I would like to hear your thoughts as well. whether or not there are any audio or visual signifiers of gender.
I think before we get into that, audio tip. if you're finding you sound different from how you perceive yourself, that's an equalization thing. You can mess with your EQ. I have been a lifelong voice hater until I started VTubing. I've never liked my voice until I started doing VTubing. And I have my EQ settings on my streams set to how I hear myself. Because it brings me more euphoria.
Valid. I should look into that.
My register is kind of where it is, and I personally like a deeper, richer tone on things that I hear when it comes to like music and things like that. I usually find myself gravitating towards basses. So for me, it's more of a preference of what kind of sound I like to hear. I also know growing up, the vocal ranges that I was really surrounded by were very nasal. And if anything, I've worked on shifting where I'm speaking from my nose to more of my chest. And that in and of itself will just shift how you sound completely. Sometimes it's not even trying to sound higher or lower. It's just literally thinking about where your voice is resting, and you can feel the resonance in your nasal cavity when you're being more nasal, and you can feel it more in your chest or in your throat when you're speaking from the chest and from the diaphragm. So those
and vocal training goes through this stuff.
It is a lot of information to digest, and I've gone deeper than most, but I still know I'm also very in the shallows of it, and it's always a process.
I feel like Cherry and I are great examples of that. Like, my Podge voice is purposely very high and nasally, and then I can this is my normal speaking voice is down here, and then I can go into the mommy voice, which is more down here. But my Podge voice is up here. So, and I mean, Cherry, they hit you out of the park with their range.
Well, I mean, this is honestly pretty much my normal speaking voice. Obviously, for when you're in character, you go a little more, hello, I'm Jerry, I'm the tiniest dragon on Twitch, blah, 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 blah. But, I sound like this, and when I started streaming, I dropped my voice lower, purposefully, which was really straining, because I know that I'm very squeaky, and again, much with my gender identity, I thought people wouldn't like it. I was like, if I sound like this, people are gonna be like, ew, squeaky! And they're gonna click off. And I stopped that at some point, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna talk normally, because ain't nobody has the energy to keep this up. But also, I have had a lot of practice in just going down here and speaking like this if I wish to.
Oh.
Yeah. And it definitely alters people's perception of you.
Oh, yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah. So I think to answer your question, Anon, yes, there are absolutely markers that identify people that are traditionally femme or masc, whatever it is, and that's up to someone's individual choice to lean in that direction, because they do have some ability to control that. Some things aren't controllable, like boobs, but those are
take
markers.
Them off.
They exist. We're definitely just take them off.
After a long day, you just zip them off.
Yeah, you just...
So we're not trying to say that these markers don't exist. They absolutely do. And people can choose to identify with them as much or little as they want. The important thing here is to recognize what that individual wants you to address them as, their gender identity and their expression. Because your identity is how you think about yourself. Your expression is how you relate that identity to society and the community around you.
I also think voice changes are great and super valid. Especially for people who are transgender and whose gender euphoria gets elevated by using a voice changer. Do it. Whatever makes you happy. You're so valid.
Yeah, don't let people who make these idiotic jokes like all VTubers are just ugly men behind the screen that use voice changers. Fuck them.
Oh my
if
gosh,
the technology exists.
I've been told that so much.
Don't fuck them. They don't deserve it.
One
Fuck
of the
them.
most famous
They don't wipe their
VTubers
assholes.
in the world uses a voice mod. Like
Yeah.
Zentreya is one of the
Zentreya!
most famous VTubers, and they use a voice mod. Like, there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh,
Absolutely.
it's a character. As I have been running tabletop games since 1995. I have sounded so many different ways. I've gone out of my way to try and it's just their characters. They're different. The VTubing allows us to become an idealized character. And it's why let anybody ever stop you from expressing that character to the best of your ability. I mean, if I was a robot style VTuber and I was using a voice changer that added static or some warble in there to make it more robotic, I mean, people wouldn't bat an eye. But the second you're pitch shifting because you want to achieve a voice that sounds a little bit more like what your character model looks like, oh, deception.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
That's basically all this.
It's a bit like this. It's like the equivalent of if you have a. Okay, wait. Let me start somewhere else. It's like when you go about your day just being a normal person, and people point out features about yourself where they are like, "Oh, that does not look like I think is attractive," and that people getting a nose job or a double eyelid surgery, stuff like that, is super common these days. But then as soon as you do that, people are like, "What? You had work done? That is so plastic," you know. And then it's similar with VTubers and voices. There's people who have a male or male-looking model, but have a more higher pitched tone, and people are like, "Oh, that doesn't fit," and then they use a voice changer, and then it's like, "Oh, but that is deceptive." It's you cannot please people.
Can't
Just
win, yeah.
Do
what makes you happy.
These are characters. We have guys out here using feminine models and their normal male voice, and they identify as men, but they want to play a female character, and that's fine. That's literally fine. I'm going to be controversial here. I'm going to be a little controversial, and if I'm getting too controversial, just stop me. But I think a lot of people look at VTuber characters through the lens of fuckability rather than people.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm in a
That's
Gundam
how I
group.
make my living.
I'm in a Gundam group, and one of the most recent posts was everybody going off about the new character models in the upcoming CG Netflix Gundam adaptation. And it really did just revolve around you say they're ugly characters, but I think it's just because you don't want to fuck them. And now you're saying it's going to be bad character design.
Yeah, people gatekeeping character or looks or body shapes and stuff like that, especially in all kinds of media like that, is insane. Good example is Mandalorian, where they had the women in the Mandalorian armor, and the armor obviously had space for titties, and they were like, they gave the Mandalorians tits, and it's where are you supposed to put them? Leave your work.
Just take them off.
Take them off. Leave your work titties at home, for real.
Yeah, jeez. Those are for after hours.
Exactly. It's like people can be so weird about shit like that.
And I
sigh of tiredness.
With male VTubers with higher voices, I see that so much where it's oh, they don't have a deep daddy voice, they're not worth watching.
Oh, but I also see that, the other way around, where people, presenting people with a male model who have a higher voice go oh, I'm not successful because I don't have a deep voice. It's
it's easy to internalize that too. That's true. Because there was a VTuber meta. There was a meta, but the problem is people get stuck on the meta rather than doing their individual thing. Yeah.
It's your voice is not the sole thing that's going to bring you success. It's a combination of things. You can't just blame it all on one thing.
It's one thing. Are you watchable and are you entertaining?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your voice, it's your model, it's what are you doing, it's what are you saying, it's lucky roll of the dice that people are going to show up and take a look. There's so many factors involved. This idea that your voice being the only thing is
It's
not even something that should be considered
No.
like the major defining factor.
That is definitely the shitty resentment that needs to be called out, both from people who come into chat and get upset about people's like pronouns or expression, or people who say they're not successful because they're not X, Y, or Z. It comes down to, again, just this VTuber fuckability thing that people need to get over.
You
Yeah.
want to know what I found? Those people tend to have humiliation kinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have had
They are
people
just
in
insecure.
our chat. I've had people in our chat that came in acting like absolute fools, and we just spent time humiliating them. Just laughing it off. Not going like at them like, "Hey, you piece of shit," but it was more like, "Hey, look at this fucker." Going back to what we were doing and kind of just laughing off what they're
At least
saying.
call them out on it. Be like, what, you into this? You into this shit? You shitty little person? You think this is harm?
Well, we called them out on it by just laughing at them. We looked at it and we just, you're in the wrong place, buddy. Like that that kind of attitude, and they end up coming around and hanging out more. It's weird.
Like when I can spot that from a mile away because obviously I make money off that. Like
Right.
But that shit costs extra. So if you're coming into my chat expecting me to, humiliate you for being a little troll, that's not what you're gonna get. You can pay
That shit ain't free.
That shit ain't free. But you're right. I do find them coming to my streams because I'll straight up say like, "Hey, we don't do that here, but here's this other website where you're welcome to engage with me in that kind of way." Like, and then they come around to my streams and act like a normal person. Because they know they're not gonna they're not gonna get what they want. But they like my content anyway. Like,
it's the internet. People are used to like instant gratification, used to like getting what they want, like just at the snap of a finger. They don't know how to talk to people, and like sometimes you can reach those people, and sometimes you can't. Like, I think that is why the block button is there. At the end of the day, because it's not, at the end of the day, like, I don't want people to feel like they're being too sensitive, like pushing back on this sort of thing. Like, if you're uncomfortable, other people are uncomfortable, and if you're not being respected, then by all means, exercise your right to block people.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think that, like, that goes for chatters, too. Like, if there's a chatter that makes you uncomfortable, reach out to a mod of that streamer and say, "Hey, this guy's really messing with the vibe here," because mods also appreciate that. Like, it helps the streamer, too, because it's like, sometimes we second-guess things, and we're like, is the vibe bad, or am I just having a day? So, if you as a chatter are uncomfortable too, like, please tell a mod.
You mean like if a streamer is being uncomfortable in your chat?
No, if another chatter is being uncomfortable. Like, if I'm streaming and someone is being weird in my chat and nothing's been done about it, and you're in my chat too and they're making you uncomfy, tell a mod that person's making you uncomfy.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah,
yes.
like chatters can exercise their rights as well.
Yeah.
Happy Mod Appreciation Day, by the way.
Yeah.
Mod Appreciation Day.
Mod Appreciation Day. But to get back to the voice gender thing again, I'm really sensitive about my voice. Like, when people make comments about my voice being like kind of mean, or being like, "Why you sound like that?" I get so sad immediately. Cause I'm like sitting over here, I'm like, okay, I was born like this. Why are you coming at me like that? And that really dampens my mood. So I 100% understand people using voice changers. I kind of got used to or have learned to like my voice and be happy with it and stuff. Stuff still gets me when people are mean about it. But honestly, if I had figured out how to use a voice changer back when I started, I might have. Because I was so insecure about my stupid squeaky voice.
I think your voice is so cute.
I appreciate that. But yeah.
It's very unique. Like, I very much associate it with you. Like, more so than anything. Like, that's Cherry's voice, that's Cherry.
Voice.
This is Tiny Dragon voice.
Exactly.
That's what tiny dragons sound like.
Oh my gosh. Stop boo, my heart. My kokoro.
But yeah, like I know like the bully the streamer like mentality is still like the thing that's out there, but people need to realize when you're like talking about people's, even if you don't mean harm, when you talk about something as innate as like their voice, you're being hurtful. You're very high chance of being hurtful. So be careful with what you say and who do you say it to.
I always say this to people in regards to like compliments, but it goes for the bully the streamer thing too. Don't compliment someone on something that they have no control over. Like saying, "Oh, you have great tits." It's like, okay, that's just objectification, and I didn't, like they're just like this. I
right back at you.
Say like, "Oh,
like,
I love
thanks,
your
I grew them
haircut."
myself.
Yeah.
You just go like, nice tits yourself, bro.
Yeah, like, but if you say, "Hey, I love your haircut," that's gonna mean a lot more to someone because they chose that. Like, that is a thing they chose. That is how they are expressing themselves and potentially expressing their gender. Like, for me, it's a huge gender expression thing, how I wear my hair. So it means a lot when people compliment me on it. But the same thing with, like, the bully the streamer thing, like, if you're a regular and you have that kind of rapport with your streamer, don't bully them on things they have no control over, like their voice.
Yeah.
Because that is part of them. They can't do anything about that. Like,
exactly. It's like in real life, like, don't comment on something that a person cannot fix within 5 minutes. Like, if somebody has spinach between their teeth, yeah, point it out. But you don't get to be like, oh, your tits don't look as plump today. What do you need to do about it?
Damn you and your unplump titties.
Damn you!
Well, you don't wake up in the morning and be like, I'm having a great titty day today.
Sometimes you have a great titty day. It's true. Sometimes you stand in the shower and you look down and you just go, oh, damn.
Yeah, all right.
Them girls are perky today.
Yeah, it's a hormonal thing, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes you wake up and you're asking yourself how they haven't hit the floor yet.
Yeah.
It's normal.
Oh my god, I was trying to run away.
Falling out the bottom of the bra today.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just hear a little, and that's when they hit the floor.
Just a little plap, but the wrong
And that's
side.
when you leave it at home.
Yeah, that's when you leave it at home. God,
that's when you put on your Mandalorian armor.
Yeah. She just put on the Mandalorian armor and call it a day.
It's a shooting up some stormtroopers kind of day.
Shout out to Helldivers, by the way, just having just gender neutral armor. You have
yeah,
and the
good
brawny
shit,
armor, and that's
absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like the fact that you can't even pick, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that they did in Helldivers that it's an extension of the satire that was done with Starship Troopers, which is a masterpiece of satire. And
it's beautiful.
Helldivers just took it and ran with it. Like, yeah, you don't make your character because you're worthless. You're a meat puppet.
You don't get to be a character.
You aren't a character, you are a pawn. The character is up on the ship telling you where to go.
Yeah, you are an agent of democracy.
They're like, you made this? No, we made this.
Yeah.
And then you go, sweet liberty, my leg!
Yeah.
My leg!
Our democracy,
my
comrade.
gender non-specific leg.
Honestly, it's to how that was so great. It's such a good time.
It is. And I love seeing like in its parody, it is kind of funny that it can actually be very affirming to people.
Oh yeah.
To not be like put in the box of this is how I have to be in this piece of media.
Yeah.
It's breaking down barriers on some, and it is reinforcing concepts and things that people didn't even know that they could reinforce for others. It's satire done in such a good way that it has led to, and this is the evidence of really good satire, motherfuckers who don't get it and then proceed to think that that's the way it works, and it's just Oh, media literacy is a problem,
like-
isn't it?
Yeah.
Guys,
Oh,
the
yeah.
game isn't actually promoting fascism. It's a satire.
Oh,
I
of
saw a
course it is.
25 tweet thread about this.
Same.
man.
I was
I'm
like,
I'm sorry if no one's going to like if they don't. Get
I
it,
didn't
they don't
even
get
read it. I
If
didn't
they
even
don't
read
get
that
it,
thread.
they
I
don't
looked
get
at it. I sighed in exhaustion. I saw Krimbo's retweet being like, nobody's gonna read this if they do not care. And I was like, yep. And I moved
Exactly.
on.
Listen, I've been a Warhammer 40k old head for a while now. I'm used to this.
My
no,
gosh.
no, the Imperium aren't the good guys. Everyone's the bad
Nope.
guys. You just realize if anybody knows what 40k is,
Yeah.
the super grim dark future setting.
Yep.
Everyone sucks. There is
Yep.
one alien race, one Xenos faction that is not evil, and that is the Tyranids, because they just hungry.
Yeah, they just
They're
bugs.
just- they
They just bugs. I love
They're
the
bugs.
Tyranids.
They're bugs and they hungry. That's it.
Yeah.
They are not evil.
They're just like me for real. I am the bug. And I'm also
Yeah.
very hungry.
Warhammer is just I feel like being terrible today.
Yeah. Which
What
listen,
flavor? What flavor of terrible?
Which flavor of genocide do we choose?
Yeah.
Villain fuckers, monster fuckers. You know, just
over
everybody
here,
has
yeah.
that occasional time where it's just like, watching somebody be a really good villain is engaging. You just don't.
Yeah.
Just when you aren't fooled by it, it can be engaging. When you are fooled by it, it's a very big problem.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, not villains. I mean,
Yeah.
my entire community is like looking at Podge very, very aggressively right now.
Monsters, you said. T.
Monsters, villains? Wow, that's crazy.
That's crazy. My gosh.
God.
Beautiful. No, but like, Helldivers is so great because you don't have gender. You only have democracy.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You can be a meat puppet no matter what's in your pants.
What's fucked up
Yeah.
is I
The bugs
really
will
would
eat it
prefer
either
that.
way.
What's
Yeah.
fucked up is I would really prefer that situation to what we have right now. I would like some genderless democracy for all.
Oh yeah.
Not the managed
I-
democracy. We don't need the managed democracy. That's the fascism in another way. But like
Yeah.
genderless democracy sounds great.
Yeah.
I always say there's only primordial chaos in my pants.
I love that. I always
I
say
identify as a problem.
yeah, I say that and that, you know, like goblins don't think about gender. We don't even know what that means.
Mhm.
You got shiny rock? Cool.
Gib.
Gib.
Oh, I once played a campaign of The Dark Eye where we were a band of goblins and my goblin was called Gib Gib. And he would steal stuff and then gaslight everyone into thinking that it always belonged to him. So somebody would be like, "Is that my knife?" And he'd be like, "No, this is
No.
my knife. I always had this knife. This was my father's knife, my grandfather's knife, probably from his grandfather too. I've always had this knife." And then the person is like, "It has my initials on it. Those are my grandfather's initials, mind you."
I know some VTubers like that.
I fucking love that.
Depending on the setting, like my favorite is the Warhammer, both fantasy and 40k. They're goblins, green skins of all kinds, orcs, goblins, the whole lot of them. Fungus, they grow literally
Yeah.
out of a crack in the ground.
Spread out of the ground.
Nice.
That's why you can't get rid of an orc quote unquote orc infestation on a planet, because if you kill them, that just releases their spores. So
Yeah.
there'll be more orcs in the future.
So many spores.
We should release some spores.
Yeah, you want
I love how I
All
oh
about
yeah,
the
let's really
picnic
some sports. I love how I hear orcs and my neurons just activate like that.
know,
It's like bling, little light bulb going off. Like oh,
Oh my god.
So the just chat, don't worry, the spores have been removed from the studio. We just had it fumigated. You are fine.
Yeah.
the orcs will grow in
I'm
your
all
lungs
sealed
now.
up. No spores. No spore
Spores
expulsion.
here.
Yeah.
All right. Reminder, chat. You may ask questions in chat. I will get to them as we get to them. I will go back to my list of questions though, and this is a bit about people who have not come out as genderqueer or non-binary, perhaps for fear of like maybe the not being popular or wondering how it might affect their audience. So the question is, a very hostile online space can make some people hesitant to identify as genderqueer or non-binary for fear of mockery or harassment. What advice would you give an established creator that would like to give their communities to start using they/them pronouns for themselves?
Enter queer spaces. Get a support network of people who have your back, and then just do it. Your comfort is worth so much more, and than trying to hide your gender identity. Speaking from experience.
And you cultivate your community. The people who love you for you will stay, and the people who don't are not people you want around you anyway. It can be disheartening to feel like you've taken a hit because, numbers affect us. It's a thing. Everybody knows numbers affect us, but those are not numbers you want. And your community will grow in different ways. You will build a community of more accepting, more understanding people because they are there for you. And it may take time, but it will happen. And I get, it sucks. It's a lot of, how, bisexual erasure. Non-binary erasure is a big thing, too. It's I don't know, people just can't believe that you can have both or many. Or none.
Coming from the next side of things, people tend to look at non-binary as femme-light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're non-binary, if you were AFAB, you're still a woman. And people are fine with that. If you are AMAB and you're non-binary, well, are you trying to look more feminine? Then you're not. It's always shifting in the direction of femininity.
It's androgyny, the androgyny thing, yeah.
Yeah, or that you're gay, which that's a separate thing.
Yeah.
Sexual preference and sexual identity are not the same thing. Sexual preference and gender identity are not the same thing. My last, one of my most, this is so weird to say, a recent ex of mine is an AMAB non-binary person, and that aspect of them in day-to-day life was just erased. And it was so hard to watch them struggle with that.
It's kind of been my experience my entire time on the planet. It's easily overlooked from the gender spectrum. A masculine AFAB will be considered they'll butch.
Right.
Is usually
butch.
Tomboy and butch, but they're all
exists.
They're all coached in femininity still.
Yeah.
They're a masculine woman. But you put that in the other direction.
There's only derogatory terms for that.
Yeah, because then men will consider you a gender traitor. You're undermining masculinity.
Yeah.
And really the only term on that end is femboy, and that's
and that's something totally
that's
else.
I really it's, in a way, it's not my place to say, but I've never liked the term femboy because it's infantilizing.
I think it's fine when people
why can't you be a femme man?
Femme man. I think it's fine when people own it and make it that their thing, but as soon as it's used on somebody who doesn't identify as that, or in a derogatory way, it's immediately so bad.
Yeah.
That's why I just like the gay vocabulary. Twinks, your bears, your otters, your wolves. It's all based around either a snack or an animal.
Twonks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twonk. Oh, jeez.
Twonk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just be a big titty twonk. Just gonna stop you. But there's also something, a little bit of a tangent, but not a couple days ago, I saw a post on Twitter where it was about men in lesbian spaces, and a big thing that stuck with me from that, ignoring all the bad rude conversation that came from it, but like what pronoun somebody uses doesn't immediately also have to correlate with their gender identity. Like a butch woman might be comfortable using he/him pronouns, and like there's so much stuff that can be taken into consideration that you can just ask about to make people comfortable, and that is literally nobody's business and doesn't really have to affect you as a person what other people want to use and do and say and like be referred to as. But people like just tend to make stuff like that their problem for no reason. Like you don't have to invalidate people. You could just not.
Yeah, just save your breath. Like,
yeah.
I think Tiff has a really good point too. Our language about sexual orientation is reliant on the gender binary. What would being heterosexual even mean when I'm an NB? Exactly. I always tell people, if you have a crush on me, you're gay.
Oh, same. I always say, because I am non-binary, I am pan and I am poly. So I always say I'm gay in every direction, and I make it everyone's problem.
Yeah.
I'm a chaos wheel.
Yes.
As somebody who is also non-binary, pan, and poly, it's pretty much the way I look at it is gender is just so much work, and I really have I have more important things to be worried about.
So
if
real.
I find someone attractive, I find them attractive. Why fight that? Why question it? Just
yeah.
But it
and
really
if they don't find you
brains.
attractive, if they don't find you attractive back, then just move on.
Yeah.
But it
somebody you wanna
really
be around
breaks.
anyway.
It really breaks people's brains. Like I've gone on dates with people and I've been like explaining about being non-binary, and then they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm a straight man." I'm like, "Well, no, you're not. If you're dating me, then no, you're not." And it just breaks their brain because they cannot see outside of perceiving you as a woman.
Yeah.
And it's like
their sexual identity.
Interesting.
Their sexual identity is more based upon how they view you, not how you view yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly. So like, I've dated people who are like, "Well, I'm still a straight man." I'm like, again, no, you're not.
Not that straight.
Not that straight.
More like spaghetti.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think there's a lot more nurture involved in most of these concepts than nature. I think that there's a lot of people that end up flowing easier along that pathway. But at the end of the day, like this, it's really hard to say what we would be like in a vacuum because we've spent so much time amongst society. Society has influenced us. It's really hard to separate what is the nature, what is the nurture aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I tend to lean more towards a lot of people, just because over time we have more people coming out late in life. They people that lived one way and then now they realize they can live another way, and then they make that shift. That it was a learned aspect. It was a learned behavior that they had, that they are no longer acting along the learned behavior. Now they're acting upon a innate behavior. But even then, there's the possibility that because of the way they learned about that other thing, they have some internalized stuff. Like, great example.
There's like a bias there.
Yeah.
Like,
there's a trend where you will see somebody who is making the transition and they go out of their way to go almost to a cartoonish extreme to prove the opposite end of the spectrum, which in and of itself shows a misunderstanding of that side of the spectrum. But that's where they're going. So you let him go, and you salute him and you say Godspeed, soldier, and you let him go.
Yeah.
You go, Helldiver.
It's for democracy. But that is so valid too. Like, because if you kind of hit spots where you don't have a choice then to do that. If you want to be accepted in a society that is so stuck on binaries at the moment, you have to make sure you hit that end of the spectrum to be accepted.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that. Yeah. You overcompensate, but you kind of have to.
But there's even misunderstandings about what it is to be on the other side of the spectrum, to the point where some people latch onto characterizations or caricatures of what the genders are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much that they're transitioning to the other side, it's they're transitioning to the societal expectation of the other
Yes.
side.
Yes.
And it's not wrong. I want to be very clear. It's not wrong. It's just it's a phenomena that happens because we as humans are social creatures, and
Yeah.
we're so influenced by our social surroundings.
But we need to do that to survive. That's like, that's just how social creatures work. If we didn't do that, we would be kicked out of the society and would die.
But I can
Sociology
speak a
major.
little bit upon that too. Like, so when my ex-wife was in her transition, she really struggled with understanding how I can so comfortably present myself as femme one day and masc another day, because she so badly, for the first time in her life, was able to be perceived as a woman that the idea of wearing like a button-down shirt to her was a nightmare, because anything that would hint towards any shred of masculinity was like, she just never wanted to go there again, right? Because she was finally free of this. So a lot of times when people are going through these transitions, they do go to that far end of like, hard feminine coded stuff or hard masculine coded stuff, because they do not want someone to perceive them as what they are not.
And that's also, there's a lot of rejection. There's a big conversation as to whether NB, non-binary people, are part of the trans community or not, because we're not what we were assigned at birth, but we didn't go all the way. So there's an entire group of people that view neutrality as like a weird, like, I fought really, really hard to get to this side. I don't want your neutrality, even though it's literally like, if I didn't know your gender, I would use the gender neutral pronoun.
Yes.
Right.
And I felt very out of place. Like when I lived in Austin and we were going to these queer and, trans meetups and stuff with my ex-wife, like, I was a lot of times the only non-binary person there, and I felt very invalidated, because here I was with all these people who finally got to be their true selves on a complete end of the gender spectrum, and I'm here fucking with gender, and they're understandably uncomfortable by that.
Yeah.
Like,
It's also, I guess, if you think about it, when you're a woman, you're born as a woman, you identify as a woman, and other people perceive you as a woman, it's so easy to just be a woman. On the other hand, if you're transgender and you transition to, be perceived as a woman, it's like you have to put so much effort into society just accepting that you are a woman. So I understand that type of anger in a way, to be like, you can wear a button-down shirt as a woman and people are still gonna be like, oh yeah,
yes.
woman in a button-down shirt. Meanwhile, a transgender person has to stare at the button-down shirt and consider if society will still accept her as a woman when she puts that on. And that must be insanely exhausting. And I mean, in a
there
way,
was a lot of guilt too, like, because like I had been told, like, it's like I was born the way you want to be, and you have had to work so hard to be this thing that I was simply born with by chance, and I am throwing that to the wind and saying fuck gender when gender is so important to you. Like, and I think a lot of that had to, like, I think a lot of that kind of impacted the direction that our marriage went, because it was so hard for, like, we had amazing conversations about this, but it was so hard for her to handle that about me, I think. But I don't blame her. I don't blame her in the least. Like, and it's hard to watch someone go through that, but at the same time, like, my gender identity and my experience is valid too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There just has to be a lot of empathy involved, because while we can understand like the dilemma that people might have, or I guess the gender envy, for lack of a better term, that people might have, I think the spectrum of the LGBT experience shows that everyone has a different endpoint and a start point. And as long as we can be accepting of where they end up, it really shouldn't be a competition of who is this, who is that, who has this, and who has that, necessarily.
I'm gonna take a moment to slightly disagree with you here on this.
Okay, absolutely.
And this is how I disagree, because I don't think anybody has. We all have the same endpoint, and that's death. That's it. That's the universal.
I meant gender
Okay, but like when it comes to your gender identity.
But this
My
is
gosh.
This is where I'm coming. This is where I'm coming from. It's
Sure,
the
sure.
idea is that we are all on a journey to an endpoint, and I don't think that declaring our endpoints change constantly.
I agree.
So at that point, my understanding is, why even assign an endpoint? Just take it from day to day where you are, continue forward, express yourself the way you want to express yourself. And if people just took the simple mind of saying, I feel like this today, this is what I'm going to do, and it could be the same thing every single day. I know somebody who drank a glass of milk every morning. I thought they were a criminal for it, but like that's neither here nor there. Like, who drinks whole milk? Come on. Humor aside, that was what they felt like every morning. That was what they wanted to do every morning, and that's perfectly valid. Just as it is valid that somebody wants to never drink milk again because that's all they drank in their childhood. And then there's somebody who's like, I like milk sometimes, and like, I want orange juice other days. But that can change throughout your life. So the idea of setting some kind of endpoint for your transition, I think it comes from the concept of gender is a task. It's something that we're trying to do, and we're trying to show, and we're trying to achieve, when it should just be what we are.
Well,
I accept that.
to be fair, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Cherry. Go, Cherry. I'll say mine after you.
That is a sociology. A thing in sociology is doing gender. That is a term, and it describes exactly that. You express your gender identity in a way that makes society see you as that gender identity. That is what doing gender means. So that is something what everybody does every day, no matter if they are cis or trans or non-binary or whatever. And so that is not really something we can get out of, because that is part of how our social stupid little brains work. We have to make sure that we act the way that we want to be perceived. And what I was going to add to that part from earlier, I think that being non-binary comes with an extra little bit of difficulty there, because when you identify as a woman, no matter if you're like cis or transgender, and you present as a woman, you can be perceived as a woman. But when you're non-binary, it's really hard to make people perceive you as non-binary, unless you do have that super androgynous look where people might be like, oh yeah, I guess they could be NB,
Yeah,
Listen, we
because
all
everything's
can't-
coded in perception.
Yeah, there's like a very different kind of work that goes into being perceived as non-binary, and most of that is telling people that you are in fact non-binary.
Yeah.
There,
Like,
in my eyes, there's been only two perfect like androgynous beings on this planet, and that's Tilda Swinton and David Bowie.
David Bowie.
David Bowie, yeah!
Exactly
The
where I was
perfect
going.
being.
True. The perfectly shaped human.
Who, like, the way you
So gender.
describe your experience and relationship and desire regarding gender is very much how I feel about it. And the whole, like, we'll just throw the gender in the toilet kind of mentality, like, I'm here for that too. But again, like, I would talk about that with my ex-wife, and she would get very upset because for her, gender was everything. She
Right.
wanted gender. She wanted to be perceived and like she wanted to be woman. That was her gender. Like, so the idea of throwing gender away was very upsetting to her. So like
think-
some people crave and I think a lot of, you know, transgender folks do strive for that because it's a thing they've been denied.
Gender affirming.
And it's
Yeah.
it's affirming. And if you take that away, then what was the point? Right?
They kind of lose a part of their identity
Yes.
in a way.
Yes.
So
I think this is why it's really important that we have the intersectional framework of things, because there is the radical framework that, you know, this is the way it has to be or whatever it is. Intersectional, you have to look at it at many different viewpoints. Like, what is gender to one person is gender to another person, and like finding a way to harmonize that, because, you know, the spectrum is broad. It continues to be defined from day to day, but like, until people are willing to sort of respect that other people have like this need to be affirmed in different ways, I think that's going to be the biggest issue going forward. Like, what is affirmation for one person is not affirmation for another person, and recognizing that is the first way to avoid sort of like backbiting competition between, like, you know, feminists versus like trans people versus like non-binary people and so on, you know.
I think there is a real need for people to understand that there are utopic views and then there's what we can do now. And like, I have my utopic view of no gender, people are just what they are. Sex is not put on the pedestal that it is put. Like, I could list off a whole slew of things about society that would be my utopic, idyllic situation.
And I want to live there.
Exactly. People want people, and people share my opinion on some things. But I also know that that's not where we are right now, which is when I said at the top, gender nihilist, but I don't pretend like it's solved. It's like the person who's like, racism is gone, guys. We did it. You're welcome. Like that. Those, you know them. You know, everyone knows one.
And it's like we have, you know, thousands of years of society and, you know, the building blocks of everything to get to this societal concept of gender that we have now. And it's like that you can't ignore that, right? Like, as much as that utopian ideal of like not having so much onus on gender and sexuality and sex and all this stuff, like, God, I like that would be perfect, but it's not, you know. I don't know that we could ever, certainly not in our lifetimes, undo that, like fully undo that. And some people don't want to, and I think that's okay too, to want to live within those binaries. But it is just respecting, you know, your fellow human being, or goblin, or dragon, or, you know,
Terminator.
like, yeah. Like,
Hellhound.
and just allowing people to thrive in a space that is safe for them and doesn't hurt anyone else.
Yeah.
We strive for the world that we want, while we need to be realistic about the one we're in.
Yes.
It's also, the thing is, it's so easy to just not be a dick to people.
I know.
Like anything,
Wheaton's Law.
like stuff that people do that doesn't have anything to do with you, that doesn't affect you. Just shut up about it. Nobody asked. Like,
Yeah,
just
go get a
because somebody
hobby.
is, just because somebody is trans or non-binary or anything, why do you care?
Well, that's where the concoction of the Defend the Children comes from. That gives them the excuse to be the dick, because now they have
It's for society.
Yeah, there's a defense, there is a cause, and this is a really this was recently a study. I can find it if anybody wants to read about it, but it was basically an analysis of different emotions and different actions, and then tracking like dopamine and endorphin levels, and righteous anger buried the needle for everything.
Oh yeah.
it turns out that like it's drug-like levels of of endorphins and dopamine when you are righteously angry and you make an achievement. There is a drug-like high after that happens, which is why the concerned Republican that needs to make sure that the kids are not being corrupted, and that's because they just want to be aggressive. They want to be, important, and giving the righteous cause. It just makes it so easy to go down.
And it's like, damn, bro, you ever
Yeah.
tried jerking off? Because that gives you some good dopamine. Like,
Yeah.
And also, you don't have to interact with other people.
Honestly,
Unless you want to. Consensually.
I have I have severe ADHD, and it causes me to have very broken dopamine production.
Ooh.
So, getting my hands on dopamine for me really, really fucking hard. But even then, I don't go out of my way to be a dickhead to people for something that I do not have to care about. Like, I wish I had that kind of energy. It's not worth the dopamine. Yeah, I just want a nap. I'm just gonna game and talk to my friends, and then I'm gonna have a cookie, and then I nap, and that's how I get my dopamine.
But I get that, like, righteous A, like, I would equate that to, like, winning something that you, like...
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, you ever win a game tournament or something? Like, how that feels?
Yeah, good point.
But, again, jerking off does the same thing. Like, you just go jerk off.
Just jerk off, guys.
Go jerk off.
Stop being mean on the internet. Just go rub one out. You're fine. You'll feel better after.
Super
We'll forget all about it.
But the Lord is watching, so they can't. So they have to be mean on the internet.
They can just close the curtains or something.
He's watching you be mean on the internet too.
Just stand behind a lead wall. Wait, that's Superman.
My dear
Fuck.
God.
Wait, hold on.
That's not part of
Yeah,
God's
God
lore,
can
is
watch
it?
if he wants.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
not a Kryptonian.
Maybe
I don't know, the
God
way
is
they write
into it.
the way they write Superman sometimes, I wouldn't be surprised.
Probably.
Oh, do you guys remember that era where Superman was just really sexist?
Yeah.
I'm glad he came around, but damn.
Yeah.
That's true growth. It's real intersectional growth.
See,
Oh, yeah.
people can get better.
Yeah, people can get better. Even Superman used to be sexist. Be like Superman. Just stop.
Yeah,
Just stop. Stop being sexist.
stop being sexist and maybe going to jerk off.
Yeah.
Hey,
Be
that
like
was
Superman, go jerk off.
That was actually a big thing that happened recently. Jonathan Kent came out as queer and had an NB partner, and it was a whole thing, and a whole bunch of super they never really
Oh,
understood.
I remember that.
They never really understood the stories to begin with, and now that it's kind of like the people, oh, what is this with X-Men going woke? It's like, did you?
Bruh.
What have you
X-Men
been
was
reading?
always
Have
woke.
you ever read X-Men?
They
For real.
apparently didn't. They read it, but they never
my
really
gosh.
understood it. It was that kind of a moment where it's like you do realize that the thing that you've been extolling your entire life has been trying to teach you something.
People who think the Punisher is the hero.
Depending on the book, that one's a complicated one.
Sure.
But like Star Trek, there's an episode with a guy who's black on the right side and white on the left, and then there's the guy who's white on the right side and black on the left, and they don't get along. I wonder if Star Trek was trying to say something about something in that episode. It feels
Oh my
like
gosh.
they were
You
pulling
think?
at something.
You
I think
think?
you're reading too much into it.
Yeah. No.
You know?
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
that's that situation where it's like they don't even realize it's been right in front of them the whole time.
The
But
thing
when you
is,
say just stop, they didn't even know it was there.
yeah.
And so they're like, how do I stop something that isn't there?
The thing is, even if Superman was Mr. Ultra Straight all his life, and then they came out with a comic where they are like, we want him to be queer now. Why is that a bad thing? People need to learn that representation and inclusion are good things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you getting mad
There are ways to do it that is more more forgiving in the narrative. There is the swap kind of technique where it's just like we're gonna just declare that a total retcon happened. Everything you've known is wrong, and now it's this now. That's
But
not
nobody
the best
does
way to
that,
do
is
it.
the thing. That never happens, really.
In comic books, it happens
In comic
all the
books,
time.
it does happen.
Yeah, but that's
Okay,
a different
but, like-
universe or something, right? Let's
Yeah.
say Earth
Also-
69 or something.
That's their OCs. You let them
Yeah.
do what they
Yeah.
want with their original
Yeah.
characters, okay?
Original character,
Have
do not
OCs that are very
copy.
Yeah,
Write your own
original
fan
characters
fiction if
do
you
not
don't
copy.
like it. Like, go sit down and write a fanfic, post it on Tumblr.
Yeah.
Sure, somebody will like
Get on
it.
that Wattpad. You have a
Yeah.
hobby now. Stop being
Yeah.
on the internet.
Yeah, get a hobby. Write fan fiction about Superman.
There's tags
Jerking
for you
off
over on AO3.
and not being
Head on
sexist.
over.
Yeah.
Do it.
So how hard do you think he comes?
Oh, he
All
probably
right,
shoots
so
holes into his walls.
Lois Lane's uterus has to be lined with kryptonite for them to.
But
So this is a Mallrats reference. I would like to let you know.
Beautiful. I didn't know
I
that
have
one.
a question, actually, because I have goblin physics, so I think I could take it.
Ooh, right. Pod is stretchy as fuck.
Does goblin physics work on the same element as like toon physics?
Kinda.
It's
Right,
it's
similar.
Yeah. Do you have hammer space in there?
It's like I hate that
Blood mallet.
I'm about to make a Doctor Who reference, but it's like a TARDIS in there.
Bigger on the inside.
Okay,
I
what
prefer
happens if
clown
we
car technology.
what happens if we drop a grand piano on you? Do you
Then-
like get flat like a Looney Tune?
I mean, I'd be very upset about it.
My gosh.
That's a
You know I
waste of a
would
beautiful
never.
piano.
You know I would never.
That's,
worried about the
Very
piano.
hypothetically.
in animation, it's actually referred to as hammer space because that's
Yeah.
where the comics
where they keep them.
hammers.
Yeah, that's why they
Kyle
keep them.
Mizu says
Prison
Project
pocket.
Jigglypuff
What?
physics.
I do. Jigglypuff's my favorite Pokemon.
Yeah,
Really?
it just bounces
I-
off.
Is it because
I
of
hate
the name?
Jigglypuff, but only because of Smash.
Oh, it's so mean.
Oh,
It's so mean.
damn it.
Oh my God.
It's so disrespectful. The sleep is such
So you
disrespect.
can't just say Smash in front of Podge and Jigglypuff in the same sentence? My God.
It's more of a preposition, but whatever. Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Valid.
fine now.
Real. People never guess my favorite Pokemon. It's kind of sad.
Aw.
Is it
Nobody
electric
gets
type?
mine either.
Yeah, you all get one turn to guess.
Okay.
Do we get a question and then a guess?
Sure.
Okay. Is it intrinsic to your current design?
No.
Okay. Then
Is
my
it just
guess
a little guy? Oh, go.
is Caterpie.
No.
Okay. You mentioned
Okay,
bugs
Adver's
before.
turn.
It was a hope.
I love bugs.
Would you
Insects are
consider
so
this
cool.
Pokemon just a little guy?
No. So
Okay,
not a
so-
little guy.
I'm gonna say Machoke then.
Oh, I do love me a good Machoke. I mean, no, not Machoke, sorry.
All right, fine, you're up.
Is it a legendary Pokemon?
No.
So it's not a little guy, it's not a dragon, and it's not a legendary Pokemon. Oh, this is tough.
Only 700 options.
Yeah, I know. No, I have to think on this. I have to make an educated response. No, chat, you're not allowed to ask questions.
Okay, Podge can tell us their guess, and then I'll tell you one of the types and you can all guess again.
Okay.
No, there's too many choices. This is so hard, Carrie.
Pick one!
Do you know
We'll
how
be
many
here
Pokemon there
forever.
are? You know how many you know how much I like Pokemon?
900 apparently.
Yeah.
Like
I love Pokemon.
because I was gonna say Dragonite, but it's not a dragon,
It's
so
a dragon, yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Just name one, so I can give you a hint.
Gyarados.
Nope.
That's a good pull.
That's a good one, though, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a dual type, and one typing is steel.
Okay.
Oh,
You
God,
may
you're
now
past-
guess again.
You're past generation 1, so you've lost me.
I
Steelix.
No. But Steelix does look like anal beads, which I think is quite intriguing in a way.
Corviknight.
Now, good one though.
I know, I love Corviknight.
Steel type. Not a little guy. Not a dragon.
It's not Tinkaton. Nope. Sorry, title.
Everyone who says I'm like a Tinkaton, and I'm like, okay,
You
you're right,
are.
but like, also shut up.
Like with the mullet and everything. Look at there we go again with the hammer. From Hammer
It's true,
Strikes.
it's true. I need a hammer.
You do.
I
That
do.
says
I need a
1,000
really
tons
good
on it.
Hammer. Yeah, that would be so
yeah.
cool, actually.
I'd be arrested
Is it
for my
Gudra?
favorite Pokemon.
Is it Gudra?
No, but I love Gudra. Gudra's a dragon type though.
Oh, that's true.
I'm just going through all the steel types in my head.
Oh my gosh, Atra.
I don't know. I'm just
No,
a
you gotta
weirdo
tell
that
us, you
like
gotta tell us.
Tentacruel.
Yeah, Atra needs to not Tentacruel. That's not a steel type.
I
Atra
was
needs
saying
to.
that's my favorite. I was saying that was my favorite.
Oh, my mom's favorite is also Tentacruel. They also really like that one. I think it's a very interesting one.
This is our dopamine break because we're talking about heavy topics, so we need to
Yeah.
get Pokemon
We are.
decompress.
It's a Pokemon break.
It's the Pokemon decompression break.
Beautiful.
Actually,
I don't think it's Metagross, chat. That doesn't
No, it's
seem
not.
like it doesn't seem like Cherry's type.
My favorite Pokemon does not seem like my type.
I actually had a very interesting interaction with Pokemon in recent years. My job was a writer for an auction house, and I was able to hold in my hand for a very short period of time one of the original Illustrator Pikachus.
Oh,
It's not Charizard.
We're talking about the Kurokuro competition. There's only 42 of them in the world.
oh my
Oh.
god.
I got it.
It was wild to get to hold that.
Tell us, Atra.
Atra.
Is it Lucario?
No.
Ah, damn.
Is it the one that's
Yeah.
a literal sword?
No. Aegislash? No, but I like that one. Do you want me to tell?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is Bisharp!
Bisharp!
Oh, that makes
Hephaestus
sense.
got it.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
a
did
cool
they?
one.
Oh, good job! Nagi got it.
Yeah, Nagi and Hephaestus got it.
Nice.
Bisharp.
Yes, it is indeed
them on my team.
Bisharp. My favorite Pokemon games are Black and White, and the first shiny I caught was a Pawniard, and I evolved it into a Bisharp, and she was with me the entire time, and I loved her so much. I still got her somewhere in some Pokemon bank account, but yes, it's Bisharp, and nobody ever guesses it because
I
do
remember.
I look like a Bisharp lover to you?
No.
But it makes
No.
sense.
Exactly.
It's a cool Pokemon. It makes that like knife sound when you.
looks-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that's
Yeah.
that's a Power Ranger or a Mega Man villain.
Yeah, it's
I'm
like
so-
it looks like a little budget Gundam. it's
Black
my
and White was
favorite.
really good.
Yeah, Black
Cannot
and White
wait for
was
the
so
Black and
good.
White remake.
Oh, me too.
Same. I'm gonna play the shit out of that.
In our
yeah.
chat, I posted my faves so you guys can see.
Mm-hmm.
My second favorite
this
is
tracks. This all tracks.
oh yeah. Oh, I love Pumpkaboo. And I love
Pumpka Booty.
the bat Woobat is so fucking
Woobat,
cute.
yeah.
My
I have
original six.
Special love for Woobat because of Pokemon Snap.
I only had red and blue. I every time if I wanted to get another one, it was on a new handheld, and my parents
Yep.
didn't make the money to buy me another handheld, so I just played the shit out of blue and red. My favorite team was Gyarados, Beedrill, Charizard was my starter.
Me too.
A
My first Pokemon.
Machamp. No, it was Hitmonchan.
Ah,
Boxing.
Image
yeah.
That's
Hitmonchan is so weirdly not Gen 1 coded. It looks like
Yeah,
a Gen 2 or
actually.
Gen 3. It's so funny.
then I would usually have a Haunter, because I didn't have any friends.
Oh.
And
Same.
I could never trade for the. I think I traded once to get a Golem, and that
See,
was
my
my
sister
gosh.
and I had Pokemon games, so we would always trade with each other.
Ah,
Cable.
lucky.
uh,
I played Pokemon Yellow on the Game Boy Color, and then I played Silver. And then I
So
didn't
hard
play
with
any
Silver.
until Black and White.
Yellow was
That
hard.
was
because
good.
Brock was your first gym leader, and if
Yeah.
you were Butterfree
Yep.
or Nidorino, you
Yeah.
would get your butt kicked.
Yep.
Absolutely.
No, I'm a massive Pokemon fan. I've played every gen. Like I don't talk about Pokemon a lot, but then when I do, I'm like, let me tell you about my Pokemon.
Honestly, the spin-off games are so good too, like Mystery
Yep.
Dungeon, and then Pokemon Ranger was insanely fun. Sad
That
that
was
they
fun,
don't
yeah.
make those anymore.
I
I was so happy about the new Pokemon Snap as well. It's so fun. It's so cute.
Most interaction I have had with Pokemon since has been the cards. That's
Valid.
where, that was the thing that I ended up, and I don't even play the game. I'm just so it's right
Cards
next
are
to the
nice
magic
select
cards, and
Yeah.
that's what
I do
I play.
own
Oh,
I do
just
own
got
some
into
rare.
Magic, never.
Oh,
I do own some rare
Halloween is,
Pokemon cards.
there's gonna
I'll
be a
bring my
lot of
deck.
Commander. Oh, bring your deck.
bring
I
my
have
deck.
8 others that you can also try out.
I'm so excited. Oh my god.
I do own some rare Pokemon cards because I do have a friend who actually opens Pokemon card packs on stream, and then you can play you can pay him to open a pack for you, and you can play bingo, and it's really addicting. It's kind of like gacha. So
Yeah, you want to talk about dopamine? Oh my god.
Yeah,
these
exactly.
card packs.
Cardboard.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I
Listen,
loved you. I used to love opening Yu-Gi-Oh packs. Good
Then
shit.
and I just go out and buy magic cards so we can open packs.
Make me
and
win.
he just gives me the cards.
I love that. That's so good. Beautiful. I want to get into magic.
I loved this interlude
should.
because, like, as much.
And
as
how
I
did we
love
get here?
talking about- I don't know, but I like as much as I love talking about like our experience and stuff. It's a lot of really heavy things.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the dopamine break. We're talking about Pokemon and cards and fun stuff. My second favorite Pokemon is Phantom, and I hatched like 700 eggs to get a shiny one. It's so
I did
pretty.
that with Pumpkaboo.
Yeah! Oh my gosh.
Pumpkabooty.
Ah, that's so beautiful. Yeah, adorable. I love that. So the thing is, when Phantom was introduced, Game of Thrones was all the rage, and I started reading the books, and they had the description of this tree, you know, that is like white bark and like red sap or leaves or whatever, and like. And like a shiny Phantom just looks exactly like that. Like the tree
Yeah.
part is white, the red leaves are red, and I was like, I kind of need that.
But
So I hatched like
Nope.
700 eggs to get a shiny.
yep.
Because I was really into
Pokemon
Game of Thrones.
Roping Pokemon into non-binary identity and progress. The Pokemon games no longer ask you if you're a boy or a girl. You just
Yeah.
simply choose a
Your body type.
appearance that you like.
Yeah.
I was
It
going to
gives
mention
you
True.
there's-
eight options, and you just choose what you like.
there is an Easter egg in Pokemon Infinite, which is like the fan-made game, where a trainer asks you, "Are you a boy or a girl?" The battle starts, and then it's a fusion Mr. Mime and Jinx.
Oh my god.
Ew! Sorry, but in my mind that sounds ratchet. Like,
really
there's a
is.
clip of me reacting to it. I'll
my
send it to you.
gosh. I need to play that
I-
game still.
I got
It's
up
still on
and
my
left.
list.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Every day we fall further from
Minx.
the eyes of God.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh.
It was such. It was,
Mr. Jimes.
Cursed
I would-
fusions. Let's just
there was I forgot the name.
I would
of
like
it, but
to
it
make
made
some
this-
really. I would make some really cursed fusions. Not gonna lie, because I would.
So fun.
I would love that. Just
The
making
most-
the most fucked up stuff.
Let me tell you, Miltank Tentacruel was a.
Yep. That's some.
Holy
So many
shit!
udders.
No,
That's
don't
so
get.
long.
Next time I don't want to think about that.
Where's all the milk coming from?
Oh.
Togepi and Muck makes
Oh,
a breakfast monster.
oh,
Okay, that kind of sounds a little funny though.
There are some
was
really
actually
good
quite funny.
ones that
I
are
kind of
like,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's some very creative ones where it's not even just like a mashup. It's like someone actually
No.
drew a sprite for them.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I saw. They like put so much work into it, and
So
they
much
like,
work.
from what I see, like they keep making more fusions. So like they update it and stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Vaporeon and Lopunny, that's just the most fuckable Pokemon. You know that in terms of human and
That's your
Pokemon
next
compatibility.
No!
No!
I'm gonna escape the Vaporeon meme. It's gonna be on my fucking gravestone.
You know,
do you know that?
biologically speaking.
Shush.
I will murder you in Minecraft.
Podge is about to commit.
I'm gonna commit. I'm even green.
My gosh.
So I'm glad we actually brought this up because I want to talk about your sex work and your lewd content, actually, as a non-binary creator.
That was a hell of a segue.
Just took a U-turn.
Is it because I put my
That was a hell of a
bed
segue.
next to Podge's
Sure.
tea?
Okay,
There we
so
go.
the
We brought it
question-
back around.
The question is, for lewd content creators, do you find that people get weird about viewing or consuming your content? Asking, for example, if you are trans, or asking other invasive questions, particularly about genitalia or like your gender or your body.
So what's in your pants? Doom.
I've never actually gotten weird questions since doing my sex work. Like, other than, the assumption of woman, like I've never had people be weird about me being non-binary.
Yeah, same here.
Other than to ask, like, what does that mean?
We have made a big turn, societally speaking, that there are more people, far more people now than there were even 5 to 10 years ago, that are just like, yeah, it's great. I want to see them titties. Like, they're just there to look. That's it.
Yeah. Like, they don't care what I identify as, they just want the content. And
It's like
you've been identified as
with me.
attractive.
Yeah, I identify as a snack, okay? Like,
Yep.
Awesome Acidica in chat said, "What's in your pants? $4.99 to find out."
Yeah.
And it's very real, yeah. Honestly, but
Yeah.
you say
you want to
never
see my
gotten
pussy?
bussy.
Pussy.
Never gotten any weird questions about that. But also, I feel like that is again much easier for people who have a feminine looking body
Mhm.
or are feminine presenting, as opposed to people who are more masculine or male presenting. I think that they would probably encounter more questions like that
Mhm.
because
Because
we just go like this and shake the
we're not like visibly
yeah.
non-binary. Like, I think the most gender fucky thing I've ever posted was like me in a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up and a
I remember that
harness
picture.
with, like, with the crop over my lap. Yeah. And like my face isn't even
Sorry.
in it. And even then people were still like woof woof bark bark. So
Yeah.
I don't.
Listen, people.
Excuse
woof,
me,
woof,
I'm
bark,
gay.
bark at biblically accurate angels. All right. Like,
I'm so gay right
Yeah,
now.
I bark at biblically accurate angels.
Oh yeah.
fear not. Okay. Yeah, the fear wasn't happening, but it was the good fear. But like,
Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody, because this is a concern that people have, whether they're doing lewd sex work or just streaming, where they feel like they need to present more as female identifying or use she her pronouns, for especially in order to be marketable and attractive and potentially basically that, like someone who has those concerns, like trying to enter sex work and feeling the pressure to appear more feminine or masculine, either way.
Everybody is into something. Like, you will find your niche of people. It depends on the kind of content you want to put out there. Like, because I don't, a lot. Okay, for example, a lot of non-binary people, non-binary people will choose to go on hormones to achieve that sort of like middle ground of in between the sexes, I guess. Like, some people want to look more masc, some people want to look more femme, some people want to be right in the middle. I don't do that. I have a very, clearly female looking body. And I do lean into that for my sex work. Like, but at the same time, like, this model can have a dick. My community likes it when I post pictures with like a strap. Like, so you will find your niche. You will find people who are into that kind of stuff. And I was pleasantly surprised that people were into that, because I have never felt as much euphoria as I did on one of my last spicy streams, where I had the PP, the goblin PP out, and someone asked me to do like a Dommy roleplay thing. And I've done the Dommy roleplay thing before, like, you know, with standard Podge, but this just hit different. I just instinctively knew what to do now that I had a dick, and it was wild and it was amazing, and I'm so happy my community loved that. So like, you will be pleasantly surprised by people every day.
I agree.
Yeah. So once again, I think that it's much easier to find a broader spectrum of acceptance when you are female presenting and being non-binary, doing sex work, as opposed to when you're male presenting non-binary doing sex work, because people just, when you're like male presenting and you show up, like you post, I don't know, content in lingerie or whatever, people just view that way different as opposed to someone who's female presenting posting pictures in, I don't know, a dress shirt and like, you know, it's just it's like the perception from a societal standpoint is immediately very different, because somebody who is male presenting, doing feminine things, wearing feminine things, is immediately under a lot more scrutiny than the other way around. So I think for male presenting people it might be a little harder, but again, depending on what kind of content you want to do, you might not hit any of those barriers. And even if there's a niche in a community for everyone.
Yes.
So you will find the people who like what you do no matter what.
People will find you attractive out there.
You are attractive.
You are attractive. Yes.
You are attractive.
You
I'm
are
pointing
attractive,
at my
and
screen.
People will see that. Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Absolutely.
Exactly.
From
Tag your content.
yeah, that is a big help if you know where to find those tags. There is, coming from that end of the spectrum myself, this isn't something that it may be expressing itself in this way today, but this is a long problem that's been around. You can even trace it back, like if we're talking about just the sex industry, for how long has it, you know, you have a three-way and a devil's three-way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, literally evil is implied in a MMF pairing, or a triumvirate, or whatever the hell we want to call it.
Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
Just bros being bros, enjoying bro time. Like, why can't, like, just give your friend a bro job? All right, but it's something that has been difficult, because usually what ends up happening is you'll either get the void or you'll get negativity.
Yeah.
And it's, yes, there is the audience out there, but it's whether you can do you have the mana to get through and cast that perpetual self-heal to get through the decades maybe that it might take to find it. And the issue is that some of us don't get there. We just shut down.
Yeah.
I personally ended up not trying to do it myself because of that kind of response. And I ended up becoming more of the manager and producer, in terms of, like, you know, I might not be starring in this, but, you know, parts of my body can star in this, or I'll set up the stage. I'll set up lights. I can hold the camera. I'll help, fix costumes. Let me tell you, I can do wonders with a roll of packing tape and a needle and thread. I've sewed people into latex so that it wouldn't rip.
Uh-huh.
My gosh.
At a con, all right. I learned a specific set of skills, but there is the support of it. That yes, it needs to be out there. We need to support people, but there needs to be an understanding that like I've faced and kind of processed a lot of soul crushing rejection / I don't know if any of you have seen Chicago, the musical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the song Mr. Cellophane. I've never been hit by a song in a musical quite like that song. It's the idea of, well, your thing is not of desire. The way you're organized, the way your body is designed, not of a desirable type. And it's not that it's not desirable. It's that those who desire it are hidden and kept away. So
or shamed for desiring it.
Yeah. And that's why they're hiding.
I must have pressed a button because I'm naked.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Not naked. Just my jacket came off.
Oh.
Don't worry. TOS safe.
But it is a completely different side of the coin. And coming at it from that way, that's probably been my hardest challenge, is dealing with that I could post myself and maybe get 2 or 3 likes and get more negativity in the same way somebody else could post, but because they line up in a specific way, it's immediate. And it's hard to get past that. The marketability thing. And that's societal. That's 100% societal.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
By the way, chat, the depths usually last 2.5 hours. We're coming up on that time right now. So if you have any final questions for our panel, please feel free to get them in. I do want to sort of tie things up on a more positive note. And I'm going to ask this question here, which is, if you're comfortable sharing, have you ever had a moment of gender euphoria throughout your content creation career?
I kind of already touched on it.
The goblin dick.
The goblin dick. Yeah, and I just, like, it took everything in me to believe that my community would actually, like, they had been asking me for it, and I still was like, I'm afraid to do it because what if I lose people for this? Like, what if it, what if people aren't into this and people don't show up? And I did it, and people were so hype about it, and I felt so friggin' good. Like, you guys have to understand, when I dream about myself, I have both sets of parts. Always. When I dream about myself, always. I have both sets of parts. So to be able to, like, for the very first time, enact that and have people love that, and, like, I felt like when I was doing that scenario, I knew exactly what to do. Whereas other times, like, I might stumble, be like, shit, what should I do next? Like, I knew exactly what to do. And it felt so good and so affirming, and I had the best time, and, like, I don't think I've ever had a more euphoric experience regarding my gender and the way I choose to express it than that.
Yeah.
Other than when I cosplayed Thor and Oakenshield and I had a really sexy beard.
Nice.
Ooh, nice.
don't
More
know if
like
I've seen those
Robin
pics. I might
Oakenshield,
need some.
am I right?
Teehee.
So the feedback that I've been getting so far, because we do have an episode coming up about like femme presenting people getting cock toggles and doing like quote unquote food play, is that a lot of people's communities have been asking for this, and they are surprised by this actually, that like there is such a demand for like that kind of content.
My community has not yet asked for a dick toggle. Maybe they are not aware of the possibility.
Run it by them.
My community just knew. It's like they could sense. They were like, man, Podge has big dick energy. I'm like, you know, I do. I've always been told that.
Amazing.
Holy cow, Podge, that pic's amazing.
Thank you. Not
wait, I
it's not a
need to see
picture
it.
of the dick, Chad. It's a picture of me as
Oh, what?
Yeah, I'm just over here like, nice cock.
What?
The gog.
That's really good.
Thank you. That's my real hair.
I'm so gay right now.
Oh my god.
Holy shit. How did you do that? Holy fuck.
Right?
Stop.
I can be your angel or your devil.
I can tell.
Jesus Christ. Oh my god. That image. God.
Thank you.
I don't know if I can ever. I don't think I've experienced gender euphoria yet in my life, which is the weird thing. Like I don't know if I have experienced that feeling, and I don't know if it's something that I absolutely should know that I felt, or if it's something that I did feel but I misconstrued for something else. Like I don't know. I've never felt so secure in it because it's always been kind of a blank spot. It's not a. I don't identify as NB to be NB. Like NB isn't a thing. NB is an absence. So like I'm non-binary because I feel like spiritually, air quotes, kind of void in that. So I don't know if there's a way to feel that gender euphoria for something that I just don't really know if I have a concept of. That's the weird thing.
Understand.
Makes a lot of sense.
I guess the moral is that all of us have transcended gender and we are more powerful than you for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fear not.
We have transcended.
Be not afraid!
Be not afraid.
Yeah. We can
Biblically
be it all.
accurate gender.
Be a little
Or we can
afraid.
be none.
Yeah.
We are everything
for me,
and nothing. We are the alpha and omega.
I
It's
identify
true.
as the throne.
Primordial chaos. For me, it's like I got mask looking art of Cherry, and I was like, that's hot as fuck, and I was very happy. As my gender euphoria moment for my VTuber persona. But yeah, in general, I look very gender IRL in general. So Podge is like, yeah. I look very gender. So I look in the mirror and I'm just like kind of happy. I look at myself, I'm like, yeah, I'm serving so much gender today.
Mm-hmm.
That's very lovely, actually.
So, yeah, I've just, like I said, almost 10 years of being non-binary, I just have learned to be very, very comfortable with myself and my body and my identity. Especially in the last couple of years. And honestly, VTubing has helped with that. Like the whole having to come out a second time, kinda.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
was so scary. But it made me appreciate even more how well I'm settled in my gender identity. Because it's a really good feeling. I wish that upon everybody.
I feel like as people who are non-binary, it's like we have been forced to sort of know ourselves in this journey, like, and I think that's really wonderful, like, just waking up and knowing yourself in that way.
Yeah.
All the effort was put in.
Yeah. We work for this.
People who transition took the time to ask themselves a question. Anybody
Exactly.
who stayed the same, they didn't have to. So
Yeah, we're forced to have a critical perception of ourselves, which is
by necessity.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which can be really scary. But I feel like everybody needs a little bit of existential crisis on the journey of growing up.
Yeah.
I would almost say it's a luxury to not have to, but in a way, I think it is the luxury to have done it.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
better for it.
Mm-hmm.
If I may really quickly answer Rad's
All right,
question
yeah.
in chat.
Mhm.
If the second coming out felt more proper than the first, no, neither of them felt more or less proper. Really, it's kind of, it was a little weird for my VTuber persona because it felt like I was keeping a really big part of my identity just under wraps. So I was scared that people would be mad that I was deceiving them.
Right.
But that's like kind of a silly thing to worry about. So it felt more
silly,
scary in a way
it's
than the
valid,
first
though.
time.
Because when you
Yeah.
build your community and your popularity and you get some traction out here,
Yeah.
you don't want to fuck it up, you know?
Yeah. It was definitely more scary than the first time, but I was very lucky. I grew up in a very accepting kind of environment, not with like school and stuff, but definitely with my parents. So, like, I started bringing home girls pretty early on, and nobody ever cared. So, but with the VTuber community, like I said, it kind of felt like I was deceiving people, so I was scared that people would actually feel it that way as well. But they didn't, so turned out all well.
I really hope that people hear that and it encourages them to be their
Oh, I hope
authentic
so,
selves
too.
out here.
I hope so too. Like I said, everybody deserves to be happy and comfortable in their gender identity, and if you're afraid to come out and you feel like you have to hide, let me take your hand, come to me, tell me about it, I've got you. It's like, you don't have to be scared. There will always be people who love you and who will have you, and who will stand there with you, because that's what a community is for. So,
Exactly.
you don't have to
So
be
you
scared.
may see some asshats stream and say some terrible shit. Just know that it's not indicative of the whole world when it comes to VTubing, and there's people out there who've been through it, who've seen it, and are willing to help you get there.
And this space is a great space to experiment with your expression, because again, you can
Definitely.
be anything you want. So lean into that if you want to, and experiment with your VTuber persona and yourself and your voice, and the things that are maybe too difficult to do on the day-to-day, you can do in little bits throughout your content.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. All right, so this has been the Depths Podcast, episode 29, Gender, Queer, and Non-Binary Expression in VTubing. A huge thank you to our guests today and Lady Mystique for making that video earlier. We appreciate you, Mystique, as well. We will be back in 2 days, believe it or not, for another episode, but we'll talk about that later. For now, I'd like to give the guests an opportunity to do some plugs and tell us what they've got going on, starting with Podge.
Jury's out on if I'm gonna stream tonight. I probably won't. I'm probably gonna play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Tomorrow I will be on the Blue website as part of a voice acting competition, actually, called So You Wanna Be a VA.
Mm-hmm.
That is at 6 p.m. EST. And then I won't be back until next week. I'm away this weekend. But end of the month, we are going to be doing my 2-year VTuber anniversary / partner celebration donathon. So I'll have more info on that very soon. And I also just had a merch release recently. So if you want spicy Podge merch, you can find that on my socials.
Very cool. Thank you again, Podge. 2 weeks in a row is, I think you might be the first one to do that, and I'm very grateful for you
Well,
to
thank
come
you for having me.
for indulging me on my crazy ideas.
Anytime.
Yeah. Cherry, how about you?
I'm currently doing a donathon to raise money for my 3.0 model. And actually, we are like over halfway to the goal of me getting married to this here very goblin live on twitch.tv.
Oh, let's go.
Gonna have a full-on wedding, so teehee. If you wanna watch me get married to the goblin live on Twitch, check some money my way. Other than that, I am actually on the blue side on Saturdays, and every other day you can catch me gaming tomorrow as well. So I'd love to see you there. Also, thank you so much for having me, Atra. I was very, very honored when you asked me to be on here. I appreciate it a lot. Oh my! Oh stop! Oh shucks!
Please. Hang on, I have a blush toggle too. Wait, where's my blush toggle?
We're just gonna.
My toggles ain't working.
Oh
Thank
no!
you so much, Sherry.
Thank you.
Remember, chat, weddings aren't cheap, so make sure you
Yeah. Check that money.
Yeah, we want to be pronounced they and them.
Absolutely.
Who's the girl and who's the boy?
I'm all of them.
We are all of the above.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
They're gonna hold hands and smooch live on Twitch. Like, you don't want to miss that.
Okay.
And last but not least, CuIfreann, aka Q, aka the Conray.
I am mainly, you can find me on the Fiendish Foundation. Just Fiendish Foundation on Twitch. We've had table games mostly running on the channel. Podge plays in our mage game that we have on Saturdays. It's currently on a little bit of a break because a lot of people, life happens, schedules, don't always play nice. And on Tuesdays, similar thing, was running D&D Castlevania setting on Tuesdays, but schedules are schedules, and sometimes you take a break on that. So in the meantime, I have been just playing a voice playthrough of Final Fantasy VII OG, like the original PS1, and I've been doing my best to do voices for every single character, and somehow, let's see, Cloud became Keanu Reeves. I do my best Irish accent for Ketchi.
Ooh, nice.
All the Shinra officials are Russian oligarchs, so it's heavy
Beautiful.
Russian accents.
Impeccable.
And the most obnoxious, if you've ever seen home movies, this is an Adult Swim cartoon called Home Movies. There's a pair of characters named Perry and Terry that had these super high-pitched squealy voices, and that's the voice I gave Aerith. And
Oh my god.
My gosh.
they it's a pure mockery because Tifa is waifu. Tifa is waifu, and Aerith didn't bother me at all. No tears. So we're playing through that, and like Elden Ring on some days, Final Fantasy on others. That's pretty much my streaming schedule.
Screaming
so
schedule.
Screaming
My
schedule.
screaming.
A screaming schedule. I scream every day from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Thank
I have
you.
a scream a day calendar. You just tear off a page, and then there's a new
Gotta
one.
get my hours in.
Just a day in the life of a gender nihilist.
Yes.
Consistent screaming.
The S in ASMR stands for screaming.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Ku, for coming into today's podcast. I appreciate
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I've been your host, Atramentum_X, Rise streamer and LootTuber. The Depth streams, well, it used to be every Fridays, but we have to move things around because I'm also on So You Want to Be a VA as a judge.
Oh,
Looks at
shit.
Dodge. Yes.
Hello, Mr. Judge.
Hi. As if I'm remotely qualified to judge you on anything.
Judge me. Be mean to me.
So check that out tomorrow.
Judge me harder.
But yeah, we will have 2 more episodes. Well, we'll have at least 1 more episode this month. The last episode I have to work on planning. That episode will be on Saturday on Fansly. We will be I'm about to play a video that will tell you what the topic is. But signing off from the Depth Studio. Have a wonderful night. Remember, you are valid and use the block button.
Be like Superman.
Be like Superman.
Bye, everybody. Be like Superman. Jerk off. Don't be sexist.
Jerk off, don't be sexist. Bye.
Bye.